a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
Imagine this scenario. It's a Sunday morning, a church parking lot in a mid-sized American city. Someone in a vehicle 3 blocks away powers up a modified FPV drone, one they built for under $400 using parts ordered online. The drone carries a small incendiary payload. No radar picks it up. No law enforcement is watching the sky. The congregation is filing in. Across town, 2 more drones are in the air at a farmer's market and a youth soccer complex. Simultaneously coordinated, no warning, no time to respond. Emergency broadcast systems activate too late. EMS is overwhelmed within minutes. This is not science fiction. This is the battlefield doctrine militants have already proven overseas, now mapped onto American civilian soft targets. Tonight, we break down exactly how this threat arrived on American soil and what every prepared citizen must understand before they use it. The clock is already running. The Iranian proxy warfare network is the primary hostile system driving this threat vector into the American homeland. Iran has spent 4 decades funding, training, and equipping non-state actors with asymmetric weapons designed to bypass conventional military defenses and strike civilian populations directly. FPV drone technology is now part of that toolkit. Iran does not need to launch a formal military strike on American soil. They seed the capability into proxy networks, lone actors, and ideological allies who do the work for them. This is what they want: maximum civilian fear, minimum military exposure, and the paralysis of American communities who have no doctrine for this kind of attack. The Houthis proved the model. The IRGC refined it, and the open border has provided the access. This threat is real, it's here, and it's not theoretical. It's Friday, March 13th, 2026, and this is Survival Dispatch News. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, with my good friends Khalid Muhammad from Command 11 Intelligence, Combat Wounded Green Beret Randy Nance, and 26-year CIA case officer Jeff MD. JJ Carroll was going to be with us, but he has a flooded house from a plumbing emergency. We need to put like the bat light out to Jason P. JP, you're needed in Kansas City. Tonight, we're running the full brief on civilian defense against weaponized drone terror. Bottom line up front, cheap FPV drones have transformed modern battlefields overseas, and militants have already demonstrated the tactics that will be deployed against American civilians on American soil. Why does it matter? Well, this technology is very accessible. The doctrine is proven, and most American communities have zero awareness, zero preparation, and zero response framework for this threat. So what we're covering tonight is how weaponized drone tactics migrate from foreign battlefields to domestic terror scenarios, what suspicious drone activity looks like, and how communities can respond without panic. Quick PS here, stick around to the end of the main topic if you want to see how detailed drone imagery is, especially thermal and infrared, and learn how you can hide from it in plain sight. We're going to cover that during the practical payoff at the end. Segment number 1, how FPV drone tactics migrate from battlefield to main street. The migration of battlefield weapons into civilian terror scenarios follows a predictable pattern. What militants prove effective in one theater gets replicated by affiliate actors in the next available soft target environment. FPV drone doctrine was not invented for Ukraine or Yemen. It was adapted from hobbyist racing platforms by fighters who understood asymmetric value, and that same adaptation pathway is open to any motivated bad actor with internet access and a credit card. The civilian terror application of FPV drones does not require military training, an organized cell, or sophisticated logistics. It requires a grudge, a few $100s, and the same tutorials already publicly available to recreational drone users. So let me get the boys on stage here. And as per usual, I'm going to go to Jeff first, but for some reason, let me see, I'm getting him back on stage here. Jeff's camera's not appearing on stage.
That's right.
Say again?
I'll fix it. Hang on. For some reason, there we go. It just clips out on me. I guess you got to change the resolution. It comes back on.
Yeah, no worries. So, Jeff, at what point in the Ukraine and Yemen conflicts do you reckon analysts first recognized FPV drone tactics had essentially crossed from being, utility, military utility, like Randy was discussing before we went live, into, a replicable civilian terror template? I mean, it's changed the face of the battlefield really fast.
Well, what crossed the line, especially in Ukraine, was when they figured out they could drop frickin' mortar bombs from these things. If you got a big enough drone, you would literally just drop a mortar shell, and by dropping it straight down, you know exactly where it's going to land because you just hover over your target. But more importantly, they found they could take out tanks with cheap, 1970s, surplus mortars, because they would drop them over the open hatches on the turret. And that became, instead of an observation tool, it became a weapons delivery platform. Then they came up with, the suicide drones, and when they would fly into airplanes or fly into something else. But when they figured out how to arm them and turn them into a precision delivery system, that's changed. That's when the everything changed.
Let me ask you this, Jeff. What has it done to the economics of warfare? So my understanding is the Shahed drones that Iran makes are worth somewhere around $30,000. But how many millions of dollars do the different types of missiles that we've used cost to take those down? I mean, there's a big ROI as far as the balance sheet's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using, and we saw this in Afghanistan, we were using $250,000 Hellfire missiles, to kill 5 dudes, or sitting around a campfire, not cost effective. Or to take out a pickup truck with a machine gun on the back. Again, not cost effective. What they've done, though, it's made it so much cheaper now. And because they're small, they don't have to be big. All they got to do is be big enough to carry one mortar shell, one mortar bomb, and it's worth it. And even if you spend $200 on the drone, which they're probably not, but even if you're spending $200 and you drop a mortar bomb, which, granted, it's probably didn't cost you anything because they're left over from this Cold War, but you can use the drone over again. You're not, a missile is a one-shot deal. A drone, as long as no one shoots it down, it can come back, pick up another mortar bomb, and go out and hit again. It's taken the cost of delivering a munition, precision munition. It's taken the cost down by orders of magnitude.
So I think somebody ran a bunch of numbers, and I forgot to bookmark it, that agrees with everything that you just said. And the one thing they did add was the Helios lasers that we have on a couple of Navy ships. It's literally dollars and cents to take the $30,000 drones down. So they're kind of flipping the script on the Iranians, and it is now in our favor when we utilize those types of weapons. So Randy, I don't know. I know that you have experience with drones. I don't know how much you have with drones being weapon platforms, but what specific modifications are you aware of where you can take essentially a recreational FPV drone and turn it into a weapons capable platform? And how sophisticated is that? Is it something that any bad actor can do as far as modifying it, or does it take some serious skill to turn them into weapons of war?
Well, I will say I have zero experience with it, because when I was in, the only drone we had was a Raven, and it's one that you had to throw in the air for it to go yourself. And then it had limited capabilities, but it was all about, reconnaissance. So we didn't have that capability, but man, listen, it's really simple as y'all just described. And even what Jeff was talking about, what we've learned in Ukraine. Now, to caveat on that, I can guarantee you our government and probably every other government on the planet that can and is smart has already got those acquisition wheels turning, right? Because what we do, we have something, we just put out the requirements. And now they're going to need some more, new requirements on to take out all these drones without spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in the amount of missiles. You look at what we supposedly have spent in just several days in Iran, and it is staggering.
Yeah.
And you're like, where did all that money go? I mean, I look at that number and I can't figure it out. So I'm sure, I have no doubt some of it probably got recycled somewhere. But regardless, as Jeff pointed out, and we did it all the way through GWAT. Some things weren't. Now, there are different times you don't have a choice, and whatever that bird has on it, you're going to use to eliminate the enemy, right, when you need to. But that being said, we usually plan better and we're better well equipped so that we can deal with these issues the way they would be dealt with without spending thousands and thousands and even millions of dollars doing it. But you've got to realize this is like anybody that likes tinkering with electronics. You don't have to be an expert. You don't even have to have a degree. In fact, you remember we used to sell those kits in this country to kids. There were scientific kits. There were little engineer kits that you built stuff. I haven't seen any of those anymore, but regardless, that's always been a thing that some people tinker, right? Whether some people like to whittle, any of those people that do that, like, I did when I was a kid, my son did the same thing, pretty much took apart every single electronic he ever had and put it back together. Some of them went back fine and it worked. Some didn't. And you learn those lessons. But that's really the only skill it requires, because I think anybody can buy a drone and improvise a way to, get some sort of weapon system on there, even if it's just like what we just described, one mortar round. It doesn't take a genius to do this, because there weren't geniuses in Ukraine and Russia that thought this up. That was the people on the battlefield that, they improvised and they found a way to put two technologies together and get something done that they needed to be done. And it worked highly effective. So we will see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Agent 00711, good to see you, or good to hear you at least. I have two questions for you. The first one is there a behavioral profile of a, pre-attack drone operator? In other words, something that people could look at it and say, we should be concerned over that person? Or are they so nonchalant or presenting that you're not going to catch them, you're not going to see them?
Well, the interesting thing is, I mean, if you've been following what we've been doing, Pakistan today, we were hit with 4 kamikaze drones from inside of Pakistan that the Taliban was using. We shot down 2 of them over Islamabad, and it was a JF-17 fighter plane that shot one down. When Randy talks about, how much we spent on the Iran war so far, it's $13.5 billion that's been spent on Iran's war. That number is absolutely huge. And when you look at what it costs Iran to develop the drones to fight, what the U.S. is spending is just not cost effective. Now, when you talk about how drones are used and how you identify these people, what you find is most of the people that are drone operators have got mobile phones in their hands, and they're taking pictures or they're taking videos of potential targets, so they understand where they can hit from. Because once the drone goes into the air, it's loaded with maybe 2 pounds, 3 pounds of explosives. And yes, the mortar system does work, but the mortar system doesn't work as well as crashing the drone into the building. That's where they get the most effect from. So what we're seeing a lot with, and this is what we've seen here in Pakistan, they've tried the mortar. The mortar is not effective because once they drop it, they cannot adjust, because they're not expert munitions specialists understanding how the wind is going to affect a mortar when it drops. So it ends up hitting a civilian target rather than a military target. Whereas if they crash the drone into the target itself, they hit the target they want to hit. And what we've seen in the people we've profiled in Pakistan, the attack that happened in Pakistan around 3 o'clock in the afternoon in Pakistan time, we had the guy arrested within 6 hours. We found him, we found his location, and we had him arrested within 6 hours because a lot of people had seen what he was doing. He was flying drones in places where drones shouldn't be. That's what you're looking at, is you're looking at people where they should not be, with a mobile phone in their hand or a video camera in their hand, and just doing sweet video, trying to figure out where they can attack from, how they can hit, where they can drop something, where security is the weakest, where they can easily make their entry from. Profiling a drone operator is very difficult. That's one thing that people have to understand, because these are people, these are amateurs. And I mean, these are amateurs in every sense of the word. They are basically video game players. And they've been given drone kits and they've been told, okay, here's your target, surveil it and hit it. However you hit it is up to you. Drop a munition, drop a kamikaze drone, whatever it may be, but hit the target.
Yeah, that's what I suspected, that it wouldn't be easy to identify these guys. So my next question is, how does the cell-based coordination model used by, militant drone units translate to a lone actor or small group domestic terror scenario? In other words, like the stuff that they're using over there in a highly coordinated manner, how does that translate to the jihadis on the ground here, especially the lone wolves who
Well, look at it this way, Chris.
anybody, right?
If you remember how the jihadis were operating in Europe, and again, I'm going to use Europe as the example. If you remember how the jihadis were operating in Europe, they were mostly people who had been recently radicalized that were just fired up to go and do something. So what they've done is they've said, instead of taking your vehicle and running somebody over, we want to be able to use you over and over to create fear. So go buy yourself some drones. And realistically, Chris, what they're buying is Tibu drones. And they're just the worst drone you could possibly buy. They're buying those, they're flying them over targets, and they're dropping them. Whether they're loaded with explosives or whether they're used as kamikazes, they're being used that way. So that's how that was done in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. What they've done now in the US is they've told these newly radicalized jihadis that, listen, you guys sit and play video games anyway. You're moving around your cities anyway. You know where the targets are. So we'll give you some money. Go out and buy some drones. We'll help you get your hands on some explosives and use those to carry out attacks. So instead of carrying a knife and going and killing people, carrying a gun and killing people, use a drone. And we can reuse you over and over, because the jihadi system, the lone wolf system that operated before, was about sacrificing yourself. Now what you're seeing is people being used over and over and over rather than being, sacrificed on the first attack.
Yeah, that's a big change, big development there. So, Jeff, I was going to ask you, if there are gaps, like what gaps exist in our law enforcement processes and doctrine here for detecting and interdicting someone who's fixing to launch a drone-based attack. But it sounds to me like there's probably no reasonable way to catch these guys based on what Khalid said.
No, I mean, a guy can, if he's in an apartment, he can launch a drone from his balcony, fly it somewhere 6, 7, 8 blocks away, and attack a target. And if he does it at night, no one's going to see it. And then the drone gets destroyed, and no one's going to be able to find him unless someone actually sees him launch the drone and puts 2 and 2 together when they read about it the next day. Or they're up on their roof and they launch it, or they're in a neighborhood. You could literally put it in the back of a pickup truck, drive somewhere, park behind a McDonald's, and then launch it. You never leave the pickup truck. It takes off. It does its thing. And then when it hits its target, you just drive home. And unless somebody sees you launch it, and you can, if you're on the back end of a Walmart parking lot and you launched a drone that's, 18 inches across, who's going to see it? Who's going to notice? Especially if you do it at night.
And kind of a rhetorical question, because I know what the answer is, but I want to hear you discuss it a little bit. And that's jamming RF to the drone. So number one, if the drone is autonomous,
right,
it doesn't depend on RF at all. And that's what was used in the tunnels in Gaza, because obviously there's no RF down there. But you can't just jam all the frequencies all the time to stop these things.
No, you really can't, because RF frequencies are used for a myriad of things, and drones is just one of them. And the thing is, and if you want to do directional, that means to do it, you got to know where the drone is when you push the button. And the whole point of these is that they strike it 100% randomly, so you have no clue where these things are. Now, if someone says, yeah, he's going to launch a drone Tuesday at 4:00 from this location, yeah, fine, but we don't know that.
Yeah. And I think that's especially difficult and disconcerting when it comes to lone wolves who aren't even communicating with anybody about it. So let's move into segment number 2, the threat landscape, domestic soft targets, and why they are already mapped. American civilian soft targets, churches, schools, open air markets, sporting events, community gatherings. None of this stuff was ever designed, for lack of a better term, with aerial threat mitigation in mind. And that institutional blind spot is exactly what asymmetric planners count on. The FBI has already publicly acknowledged that weaponized drone use against mass gatherings on American soil is not a hypothetical, but a projected certainty based on overseas deployment patterns and domestic threat assessments. The breaking intelligence this week, the FBI warning to California law enforcement about Iranian UAV attack aspirations off the West Coast, confirms this threat has already been moved from theoretical planning to active hostile intent directed at the American homeland. And Randy, I'm going to come to you first, but I want to just provide a quick little update for everybody. One of our sponsors, who shall remain unnamed, was walking their dogs on the Pacific coast last night and spotted multiple Poseidons flying. So the Poseidons are the latest generation sub hunters that we have. So I think the number is 14. Khalid can correct me if I'm wrong. I think there's 14 Iranian subs that we supposedly have no idea where they are. Is that the case, Khalid? Is it 14, 12?
It's 14, yeah, and the number goes up. I've actually heard a number somewhere around 20 now.
Wow.
That the U.S. has no idea where they are,
So-
how they got any. The thing with the lost subs is that how Iran has been able to develop a drone type of sub that can fire a drone underwater.
Mhm.
That is very dangerous, and these are the subs that are missing.
Before I go to Randy with the question that's part of the formal brief, what's the source of these subs? Do you or Jeff know? Are these Russian subs? Are they diesel? Like, how are they powered? Where did they come from? Jeff, do you want to take a run at that?
Well, they're going to be diesel. They don't have any nuclear subs. And they may very well be Russian Kilo class. For them to get over here, I don't know that they have the range without refueling in mid-ocean to do that. They tend to be more coastal patrol type submarines. A strategic sub to get that you're going to put to sea and expect it to be halfway around the world is going to be nuclear.
Okay,
and they don't have those.
No, I appreciate the clarification. So, Randy, apologies, but I've got 2 questions for you. The first one is, what categories of soft targets carry the highest vulnerability profile for drone-based attacks? And obviously, like, just to state the obvious, is clearly open air gatherings are at the top of the list, but there's many more. Pick that ball up and run with that one for a minute, Randy.
Well, I mean, you could just about pick anything, right, that carries a lot of people. Office buildings in big cities, even. There's a lot of people in those things, man. And it only takes a little bit of damage to start some fires, man, and there you go. But we can go back to the same old soft targets we always talk about. Schools are really soft targets now, because also what you just talked about, open air events. Schools are always having some sort of sporting events going place, and some are inside, but at least half are outside. So that's a lot. Then we have a lot of professional sports that go on, and then every other kind of festival and celebration that people can think of all across the United States and communities. All those are soft targets. Mall. I mean, for a drone, there's not a hard target, I don't think, unless it's underground. And as you mentioned, they have drones that if there's some tunnels, they can make it down there as well. So, I just think with drones, I mean, man, it is, well, I'm glad I didn't have to worry about them when I was in service, because this thing brings up a much bigger headache for planning and trying to work the battlefield, well, so to speak. Now that drones are out there, man, it opens up a lot of stuff because, as you mentioned, they're cheap, they're easy to make, they've sold everywhere. And let's just go back to when Biden's term, right? With the drones that popped up around, what was in the Northeast. And I don't know if we ever got any real answer on who that was or how they got there. But the government, the news for several weeks, they were like, well, we don't know what. But that just goes to the point we were talking about earlier too. How are you going to find these folks, the pilots, or even where they launched them, where they're stored? Here we have these drones that came up in the Northeast where all these cameras are and all this other surveillance, and we didn't get the real answer. Now, that may be because they just don't want to tell us. They may really know and probably do, and they just didn't tell us. But it just goes to show you we're not going to get any real true information on the ground. And drones open up a plethora of targets that you can now get to, whether you drop stuff on them or like Khalid, because this is what they're going to. I saw one earlier today that we have. I think they said it's only like $5,000 or something, but it's fairly cheap, but it's a pretty big one. And that's really all it is. It's one that sits up there and waits till the target shows up, and then it'll go on down and crash into the target. And I think we're going to see a whole lot more of that stuff. And man, trying to defend that's going to be a real problem.
Yeah. So here's my follow-up question to that. Based on the IRGC's heavy investment in drones, whether it be, for their own military, whether it be for Hezbollah, whether it be for lone wolves, they've invested so heavily that this poses a huge vulnerability for us. I just wanted you to speak a little bit more to that I don't know that people realize just how vulnerable we are. You can watch the videos coming out of Russia and Ukraine the past years and kind of get a feel for it. But this is a massive vulnerability.
Yeah, it is. And I would say any state-sponsored event like that, you know what I mean, where they're making drones, it's no different than us. We're going to make them as efficient, most efficient as we possibly can, and as absolutely lethal as we can. And so I would imagine Iran has done the same thing. And let's just take it for what it is. The regime at Iran, even though now a bunch of them are dead, the fact is over the last 50 years, they've only had one mission. They don't like Israel and the Jews, but they've always hated the United States, and we're a big target. So everything they've done is probably planned for some sort of interdiction or some sort of conflict with us. And then you got to realize, man, they can have these drones anywhere. And even if we wipe them off the map, there's still plenty of Iranians everywhere else that could still carry off these missions and launch these drones. And again, I go back to those ones because everybody saw the videos. Those weren't cheap. Those were not your $200 cheap drones that we had up in the Northeast. And any of them that they developed for military application, these things are not going to be cheap, and they're going to be very deadly. As I said, they're going to be lethal in every way. And I mean, the problem is we don't know how many they built, where they are, or anything else. So again, the problem is anybody can launch these things anywhere. And even if we, as I just mentioned, even if we wipe them completely off the map, it may not stop these plans.
Yeah, let me just throw in a piece of information here. I've mentioned it before, but for those of you who haven't heard this is important. January 20th, 2025, DJI pushed out an update to their drones worldwide. And their drones are designed in such a way that when there's an update available for the drone, you can't put it in the air. It will not go in the air until the patch has been applied to it. And that patch that they sent out the day before Trump was sworn in the second time eliminated all of the geofencing in America. The geofencing is what kept those drones from flying into restricted airspace. So those drones, all the DJI drones can now fly into restricted airspace, and you can bet your ass that they're relaying all of that footage directly back to the CCP. as another layer of.
Oh, sure they are. You know, and one of the bigger softer targets that I didn't mention, and I think somebody just did, but airports. You know what I mean? We already know that that's been a question since drones came about and people were able to buy them and start flying them. Okay, we're not going to fly them around airports for obvious reasons. You know, that is a soft target, but you know, that's a limited one, because we know if they all of a sudden start hitting airports and planes coming in and out, what's going to happen? Air travel will cease to exist.
Yeah.
So then that capability would go away. But in the interim and right now, they would still have that, at least for the initial attack.
Yeah, it's crazy. So let's distill this down to the civilian level, Jeff. How should Americans recalibrate their situational awareness, you know, habits, practices, SOPs, when it's not just the X and the Y axis anymore? Now it's the Z axis that you have to be focused on as well when you're outdoors.
Yeah, you got to start thinking in 3 dimensions now. Most people aren't used to that. You look at threats, is it in front of me, behind me, to my right, to my left? You don't think about it being underneath you or above you. It's not underneath you yet. I just think about the line from the movie Tremors when the guy goes, "Goddamn underground monsters." But now it's goddamn flying monsters. I mean, yeah, most people don't think about that. Now, military guys do, because you get air support and you've gotten, you know, incoming artillery and things like that. But most civilians don't think about that.
Well, you know what? Let's give both Randy and Khalid a kick at that one. Randy, I'll let you go first, because Khalid, I've got a couple questions for you. But Randy, when you were Green Beret and you guys were going out on missions, what was the SOP, without getting deep into it, as far as overhead threats are concerned in Iraq?
Zero.
No
It
shit.
wasn't even in the planning, because we had complete air superiority and they didn't have any drones yet. Now, I don't doubt that could have changed as we got, you know, past 2010, 2015, 2018. I would imagine that there probably was, because there might have been, and I don't know, I can't speak to it, but there might have been some drones that showed up on the battlefield there that the enemy had. But when I was there, because the last time I was in theater operationally was December 22nd of 2006, and that's when I got injured. When I went back in 2017 with Afghanistan for that little USO tour, there wasn't even any mention of it, of drones, period.
Yeah,
and we were flying around in a Huey. They took us, except one, we went up further north. We took a little plane ride that took about 3 hours, that they have like a civilian kind of airline service they have there for contractors and people. But other than that, we went everywhere in a Huey, and they never mentioned drones.
Such a recent development. So, Khalid, It's actually going to be 3 questions now, because I want to hear your thoughts on Americans recalibrating their situational awareness SOPs now that they got to watch the Z axis as well.
Well, let's start off with understanding how these drones have been developed. Drone technology was introduced by the Taliban inside of Afghanistan in 2021. That's when we first started seeing drone attacks in Pakistan. The way the drone has developed is it's gone from being the Temu drone, where they were able to buy it online from China and load it up with a mortar, drop a mortar. Then it turned into explosives. Then it turned into a kamikaze drone. Then India kicked in with the Taliban and started helping them develop their own drones. So we've actually seen some of the drones that they fly with Indian technology and with Russian technology. Let's go back and look at how in Europe we had drones flying over airports. If you remember back, I think it was September, October, November, when Ukraine was just blowing away Russian bases with drones. All of a sudden, we saw Russian drones flying over airspace in Brussels, in Berlin, in Munich, where airports were shut down because those drones were in the air. That technology, that mentality has now been moved into the US. And the biggest problem we've got, Chris, is all of these people that are flying these drones in the US have been trained in some way by the Ukrainian battlefield. They've either gone there and gotten training from that battlefield and used them there so they understand how to use the drone as a weapon, or they've gotten videos that have flat out explained in detail how a drone can be used as a weapon. We've always used them for ISR. That's been how drones have been used for years now, since they were first implemented.
Hey,
From a
Khalid,
military
let's just some people in the audience don't know what ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. Carry on.
Yeah. So what we do is we put a drone in the air that had a camera on it. We'd be able to see everything that was going on around us. The problem you've got in the U.S. right now is that 90% of people don't even look left and right. Forget Z. I mean, X, Y is something they don't see. How are they going to even notice what's going on in the Z axis? And most people don't pay attention to what's going on. And we've said this over and over, that the American public needs to stop looking at the weapons of mass distraction and start paying attention to what's going on around them. That's become more important now when you start talking about drone warfare, because you could be standing someplace and something could be dropped from the sky and you won't know until you're boom. And it's too late at that point. There's no way to get off the X at that point. So the American public right now needs to understand that when you're out in public someplace, when you are in a parking lot, when you're at an open air event, when you are walking into a shopping mall, you need to be looking not only around you, but up in the air to see if something's up there that shouldn't be there. That could be a drone, it could be a balloon, it could be anything, because terrorists have really modified the way they use warfare now.
Before we go to the next question, I got a quick audience poll for everybody out there who would like to hear more of the boom sound effects from Khalid. Put a 1 in the live chat, whatever platform, just throw a 1 out there. And if you want to be creative, tell us what exactly you'd like them here. I'm having flashbacks to the 80s and that guy who'd be like with Herbie Hancock and doing all that crazy noises and stuff. Khalid, on 10/7, when 10/7 happened, there were very few people there who looked up at the paragliders with these jihadis coming in with rifles, and they were kind of just standing there dazed and confused. And I'd like to think that after 10/7, that most people in the world, hopefully in America as well, if they saw paragliders coming in with guys with rifles, that they would get off the X, that they would, distance equals safety, get as far away as possible. What are your thoughts on drones? Like, if somebody sees drones, what kind of drone behavior would key somebody into, holy crap, here it comes, I need to get away from this thing, versus somebody who's flying a drone for a legitimate or recreational purpose?
Well, the key thing you need to pay attention to is a loiter drone, something that hovers in a location, taking a 360 view of what's going on around them, because the way a loiter drone is used is it hovers in space, it hovers in the sky, and it waits. And when it's used on the American public, what it's waiting for is the gathering to grow. Once that gathering grows, then it launches an attack. So if you see a drone hovering in the air above you someplace, and it's just hovering, it's not moving, it's not going anywhere, it's just sitting there, that's something you need to get far away from, because that's something that's going to drop at some point on you. Either it's going to come at you as a kamikaze attack, or it's going to come at you with a mortar and explosive that is dropped. So the first thing you need to pay attention to is hovering drones, what we call loitering drones.
Let me just, it dovetails, your answer is perfect, and I'd never heard the term loitering drone, but it fits perfectly with the next question that I had for you. So do they loiter when the bad guys are doing recon, like reconnaissance? Like, do they sit up there and gather data and then other drones come in, or they leave and they come back to hit the scene on a different day? What are the things that might be, in other words, indicators that some casing is going on? They're casing the area, and that it could be an immediate threat or could be intermediate threat.
Let me take you through through the surveillance process on how a target is selected. What you have first is a human source that goes and looks and sees. Because what they've done is they've done the online surveillance, they've looked at Google Maps, they've looked at different AI technologies and seen how that location looks. So what they do is they understand how the location looks from an app. Then they go and they physically surveil that location. Once they've physically looked at it and gotten an understanding of how it looks, then they put a drone in the air. That drone is there to gather intelligence. So it will fly around, it will not loiter. That's the thing you have to understand. When they're gathering surveillance, when they're gathering intelligence, that drone is not loitering, because once it starts to loiter, people start paying attention, especially in restricted airspace. That will draw attention when it just flies through. And what you'll notice is they will fly very slowly as compared to how a normal drone moves. It will fly very slowly. It will be taking pictures. It'll get a clear understanding. It'll come back. The next time you see that drone, it'll be loaded with a weapon, and it will be coming to carry out the attack that they've done the surveillance for.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like they've got their SOP down pat and fairly sophisticated. So let's move into segment number 3, recognizing suspicious drone activity. I think we kind of jumped the gun on that. Pardon me. And what civilians must know right now. So recreational drone behavior is characterized by casual hover patterns, wide arcing movements, short flight durations near the operator. Tactical and surveillance drone behavior, as Khalid just mentioned, is very deliberate, repeating, directionally focused, and often conducted at very low altitude over fixed points. Suspicious drone activity includes repeated passes over the same structure or crowd, nighttime operation without visible lighting, which that one's a really big one, close proximity to critical infrastructure, large public gatherings, and flight patterns that suggest mapping rather than recreation. The most important thing a prepared citizen can do when they observe suspicious drone activity is document everything: time, location, direction of flight, a description of the drone, pictures of the drone, video of the drone, operator location, pictures of the operator if they're visible, and then report it immediately to law enforcement. So Jeff, I'm going to come to you first on this one. What specific flight pattern characteristics beyond what Khalid's mentioned distinguish a surveillance or pre-attack drone from a recreational hobbyist aircraft in a civilian environment, with one twist? We have insurance companies now in Florida, I don't know about other states, that are flying drones at the 5,000 foot level. So it's high enough that you're probably not going to see it with the naked eye because they're small at that type of elevation. Are these guys flying drones? Like, are the jihadis flying drones at a height where we wouldn't see them from the naked eye by chance?
They could be, but they don't need to be, because there's so many people that fly drones recreationally or for business purposes. Realtors use drones to take, do an aerial swoop into a house, or to show where the house is located in a neighborhood, or to see the view from the house looking at the mountains or the beach or wherever it is. That is, all you have to do is go to Zillow, look at a house for sale, and there's probably about a 50% chance it will have drone footage incorporated in it, as well as photos of the house inside.
True story.
That's common. And if I was a jihadi and I was trying to do surveillance, I would just do that. And if anyone asks, what are you doing? Well, I'm taking video for a realtor. Oh, okay. Someone down here selling their house, they want pictures of the neighborhood. What an attack drone we need to look at.
My inbox is now going to be flooded from people saying that you told the bad guys how to attack us.
Okay, well, maybe, but I think they figured that one out themselves.
But
the other thing is, does the drone have a payload? Because a regular, regular drone has a camera. That's all it carries. It has a camera, and it may be on a swivel and all that, but it's still just a camera, and they're small. They're not very big. Is it carrying something? And that's when you got to say, why in the hell is this drone? Why is there a big black box hanging from this drone? Or why is there a long cylindrical object like a gun barrel hanging from this drone? That's what's going to distinguish a surveillance drone from an attack drone. Because if you fly a drone into a person, yeah, you'll screw that guy up. You may even kill him. You're not going to do a lot of damage to a crowd. It needs a kicker. It needs an explosive or some sort of dangerous payload, chemical, biological, something.
No, that makes perfect sense. And before I go to Randy and then Khalid, I mentioned the nighttime stuff. So if it's a low light environment or it's nighttime and somebody's operating drones, I've done it myself in my backyard. They're virtually impossible to see unless you have night vision. And you don't have to go to a very high elevation and they're not audible either. I mean, is there any pearls of wisdom you can throw out there as far as nighttime detection is concerned?
No.
That's what I think.
Unless you have thermal and they, because their motors are generating heat, but probably not that much heat. They're small electric motors. And it depends on the ambient air temperature. If it's cold and they're flying a drone, the drone, you'll get some contrast. But if you're flying a drone at night and it's 90 degrees outside, I doubt your drone's going to be much hotter than the surrounding air anyway.
I've done this actually, and there's a thermal scope off of one of my rifles, by the way. The battery will give off a heat signature like nuts. It stands out like a sore thumb.
So that would be your one thing.
Absolutely. So the problem is, what if it's like a VTOL, it's got the blades on the top, you don't get a heat signature from the ground very well off of that.
Because it's cooling itself with its fan motors.
Yeah, but the battery's typically on the bottom. It's not always, but it's typically on the bottom. But even if you had a side view of the battery, I'm telling you, it stands out like a sore thumb. Yeah. So, Randy, what's the threshold of suspicious behavior? So if somebody's out there and they see somebody operating a drone, doing some of the things that all three of you have mentioned, what's the threshold? How high's it got to be before the person, either calls 911 or tries to reach out to law enforcement, federal, local, whatever?
Well, I'm not sure about that because, I think probably a lot of people have called, when drones first came out, they were flying over people's yards. Everybody was getting upset. So they called the police and everything else. So I don't know if that's going to do really any good. And the only thing I thought, though, when Jeff was talking about carrying a payload, the problem isn't Amazon and Walmart, there's a couple of retailers that are going to start delivering by drone, aren't they? Or have? I don't know. I know there was talk about it, but I don't. What?
They already are. Walmart is already
doing. So that's what I mean. So having a package may not be an indication. And then we talk about the other one that had the loitering ones, which is what I was referred to earlier before Khalid talked about the one I was talking about that we built. That's all it is. It has the payload in it and it waits whenever it gets the go, like whatever the target shows up, or like he mentioned, when the crowd gets big enough, it just comes down and crashes in and blows up. But I would say, if you're watching someone that's operating a drone and they're going and looking in areas or around stuff that is probably restricted, or it's hard to say because, again, I'm in a big neighborhood and I've seen a couple of drones here and there, but I don't ever see the people flying them. You know what I mean? And then I'll see some that people will post on Facebook. Their kid was flying his and it crashed and now they're looking for it. The problem is you don't ever see the people flying them. I mean, I haven't, and maybe that's just me, but how would you know that they're being nefarious? Now, again, I think you would have to look at what particular area they're in, where they're flying their drone and how. If they're just flying it around a house and they're taking pictures, you're going to see them go up and down. They're probably going to do 2 or 3 things, but they're going to be on that one house. They're not going to be circling a bank. They're not going to be out probably looking at military installations or other soft targets or electric grid things. I mean, there are certain things that if you see them doing that, and they certainly, like if you see it around electric, this guy ain't wearing an electric company uniform in a vehicle that's marked that he's with from the electric company, then maybe that would be something you would call nefarious. But otherwise, how do you really know?
Well, I'm going to throw something out there from, the office of the politically incorrect. If you see the operator and they look like a jihadi,
of course,
acts like a duck, it's a duck.
But what did we talk about this whole time? These guys here aren't looking like jihadis. They're going to look like us. Maybe not white, you know what I mean? But they're not going to have a big burqa, and you know what I mean?
Well, we've seen a lot of stuff in the past 18 months where these assholes around the world have gotten much more bolder than they were before. And we've discussed that they've become emboldened in many Western countries. So I don't think it's an absolute anymore. I think that some of them, they have the balls bigger than the brain syndrome. They don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. and they're going to go out and they look like jihadis and they're going to do their thing and they think that they're untouchable.
Well, what does a jihadi look like though in the United States? Because they're not wearing like
Same
everywhere, and what we see on the news are guys in man dress because that's how they dress over there, right? But
well,
they don't dress that way here, mostly. Generally,
the kid who threw the IED in New York City last week.
Did he have one on?
No, but he was a dead ringer for a jihadi.
Well, he had owned by Allah. I mean, he had some verbiage on there.
No, that guy was Austin. I'm talking.
Oh,
the guy
I got you.
Threw the bomb in New York
My
City.
bad,
But yeah,
my bad.
if a guy's flying a drone, he's got a sweatshirt on that says "Property of Allah."
Yeah, you probably should be a little concerned about that.
That might be your clue, right? Sort of thing.
Flashing lights.
So, Khalid, give us the benefit of your experience in modern day war over there. Is there anything that you can think of that could be applied to a community as far as observation and reporting is concerned that would potentially be effective at creating some sort of early warning network system, whatever you want to call it?
Well, the first thing you need to pay attention to, Chris, is people that are flying these drones and at times when there's nobody around and they're standing in places where there's nobody around them. So they're basically isolating themselves and they're flying at a time when nobody is out there to watch them. That's the first thing you need to be looking at, because if you see somebody standing out in a park flying a drone at 8, 9 o'clock at night, you need to start wondering why the hell he's flying a drone at that time. Or if he's flying it early in the morning, you need to start wondering why he's flying a drone at that time. That's obviously someone who's working to gather intelligence on a target. And when you start looking, and what I've always done is whenever you look at open spaces, look at 2.5 to 3 miles around, do a radius of 2.5 to 3 miles and see what falls into that area. If you see a large office complex, if you see a shopping mall, if you see a school, if you see a military installation, if you see a police department, those are active targets. That's what they're surveilling. And the understanding that most people don't have, because you haven't seen it there, these guys have gotten very good at blending in. So they go out and they've got a beer in their hand and they're out watching the football game at the park and they put a drone in the air. So it hovers over the park for a while, like it's recording what's going on at the park, and then all of a sudden the drone disappears and it goes off and it starts gathering intelligence where it really wanted to gather intelligence, comes back, starts shooting around the park again, and then lands again. Those are the people where you need to pay attention to, because the guys that are a little off, and you can tell when they're a little off because their mannerisms, their behavior is not what your normal person looks like. They're there to do their job. They're at work. They're not there to enjoy what's going on around them. They're there to gather intelligence on the target they're supposed to surveil. So their attention is not on what's going on around them. That's the first trigger that you need to look at. Number two, the people that you're talking about that you can easily spot that are jihadis, you don't have in this category, because drone operators are normally naturalized Americans that have come from either Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Libya, and they've learned to blend in. You won't see a beard. You won't see them in man dress. You won't see them wearing the traditional hat that a lot of Muslims wear. These are people that have been trained to blend in. Once they blend in, you forget what they're doing. You don't pay attention to them, which is why I keep saying over and over that people who are stuck in their phones are not going to see these people, so they're not going to be able to report them. If you are smart enough to have a phone in your hand and you happen to roam around the park and you're shooting video and you catch somebody with a remote control in their hand and they're flying a drone, snap a picture, because that's something you need to provide the police. Even if somebody just goes and asks a question, what were you flying a drone for? At least you've alerted somebody.
Yeah. So somebody in the audience said something about Red Dawn. And if you look over there, I know it's hard to see because the picture that Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn, is playing on that TV right this minute. So a little bit of irony that somebody would mention that. But yeah, good insight, Khalid. I appreciate that very much. So we're going to go ahead and get into the next segment. And that's segment number 4. Wow, we're moving along pretty quickly here. So Jeff's wife will be happy with us tonight. Segment number 4, community response frameworks how prepared Americans can organize without panic. Community resilience against a drone threat is not built in the moment of an attack. It is built in the weeks and months before through deliberate observation networks, communication protocols, and designated reporting chains that mirror proven civil defense models. The church and the neighborhood watch are the two most underutilized community defense assets in America, and both can be reasonably hardened against a drone threat with nothing more than awareness training, sector assignments, and a shared communication channel. Panic is the secondary weapon in any asymmetric attack. Communities that have rehearsed a response scenario, established clear communication channels, designated points of contact, they will absorb the shock of a drone incident and continue to function, while unprepared communities are going to collapse. So I've lost track of what order we were in with everybody. So I'm going to come to you first on this one, Jeff, just because that's my default. What constitutes the minimum viable, drone watch network for a community? Like, what are the roles for individuals? What tools do they need? Communications infrastructure, all of that stuff to be considered operationally effective. And is this going on in Ukraine and Russia, by the way?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in communities, because I think for the most part, drones that the average person can do anything about, those are the smaller ones, which are, they're being used on the front lines. Because if someone's sending a drone at you that has a 20-foot wingspan and a 500-pound warhead, it's going to be coming in hot, and there's not a whole lot you on the ground can do other than get the hell out of the way. But if you're trying to keep people from coming into your neighborhood with, the smaller optical drones, first of all, you got to realize it's not legal. You can't shoot them down. You're not legally entitled to do that. Now, if shit hits the fan, that you may say, well, screw the rules, I'm going to do it. But it may be just the next neighborhood over, and they've got their own drones up for their own security. But it's going to depend on how big of an area you're trying to secure. The bigger the area, the more resources it's going to require. If it's a church and the church property, you're probably going to need 3, 4, 5 people, and it's going to depend on how many, what kind of trees are around, what's the terrain like. If it's wide open, then you can probably get away maybe with fewer people because you have longer lines of sights. You don't have to worry about a drone popping up over a tree and swooping down on you. But that's something you're going to have to assess. Now, if you're going to try and secure a town, good luck. There's just, their drones are too small, and there's just too many ways for them to come in.
Yeah, agreed. So, but you just set Randy up perfectly. Randy, how should church security teams and neighborhood watch programs integrate drone threat awareness into their existing SOPs without creating, unnecessary alarm amongst their flock?
Well, if you're a neighborhood watch, right, then one of the things you'd want to do is get, your neighbors, all of them, anybody that actually has a drone, to let you know that they do, or let the neighborhood watch know that they have drones, so that maybe what theirs looks like, where they're operating, that kind of thing. But churches, you probably definitely should, because they're definitely one of the softer targets. And since most of them in this country are Christian churches, they are definitely a target. And so, I would say that they definitely need to put some SOP in there, because one of the things you want to know is, they're probably not much. How often is there a drone flying around there at all, period, around they are? And generally, it's probably not at all. So certainly, if all of a sudden you get a drone outside your church, you probably want to pay attention to that. And there probably should be some sort of alert system, like alert the people in the church, so that you can at least observe it to see what, if you can determine, if anything, from watching it. And certainly if it's just hovering around the church, you might want to figure something out real quick, or maybe have everybody leave. I know that would be a problem and probably inconvenient for folks. And certainly if it turned out to be nothing, but why take the chance? In my opinion, why take the chance? Because, if that drone comes down and hits and blows up, that you don't get a redo. There's no starting over. So Go ahead. I know you want to say
Well,
something.
no, would it surprise you that up until a couple years ago, the NFL was quietly announcing how many drone incursions were in their open air stadiums each year? And then they stopped doing that because it was getting some coverage and it was scaring away fans. I think the last numbers actually are 2023. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And the average up until then, for probably 5 years at least, was between 2,000 and 3,000 drone incursions per year in NFL stadiums.
Well, that's what I was saying. If you're a church, you probably should be documenting drone activity around your church and what it's doing. It may seem a bit extreme, but really where we are in time, I don't think it is anymore. You know, a few years ago, that might have been a little much to pass on to people. But, you know, we've seen church attacks on churches increase by, I don't know how many percent, but a lot. And we know that the intelligence says, and has always said, and they're constantly, you know, we're seeing videos now where Muslims in this country, they're taking over churches, are videoing that and putting it online, making fun of Christians of them taking over a church. So we know that they're targeting Christians and Christian churches. So if you're not out there paying attention and logging every little drone activity, you probably should be, because you might find exactly what you're talking about that the NFL finds. And, you know, if it's enough, again, you know, apparently the NFL hasn't been able to do anything about it legally wise, because again, they probably don't even know who's flying them. And as we all know, been mentioned in the chat many times, you can't just go knock one out of the air, because somehow that is illegal and they will arrest you and charge you for shooting somebody's out of the sky or damaging it in any way. So I think there's got to be some changes there. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, if you're a church, you should be documenting that now and putting some sort of SOPs and notifications of what you would do if one starts to act nefarious or it's been circling your church for a while. You know what I mean? That's something you need to consider.
Yeah, and so a drone's considered an airplane essentially by the FAA. And we've got a couple of videos coming up, I think, in the 5th segment that speak a little bit close to that. But while we're on open air venues, and then Cleet, I've got 2 questions for you to wrap out or close out segment number 4. But we've discussed many times 2002, 2003, that the Russian FSB, the equivalent to our FBI, pumped aerosolized carfentanil, remifentanil into the HVAC system to end a theater that was under siege in downtown Moscow, and they did not tell anybody else. And you had hundreds of people died that could have been saved, not just the jihadis, but the patrons who died from that. You can go to Next Distro, so NEXTDISTRO.org, nextdistro.org. You can go to, there'll be links for every state. Go to your state and they will send you Narcan for free. So they typically send the higher potency, and they typically send 2 boxes with 2 doses each, 4 doses overall. Just be aware of something. Number one, 80% of the fentanyl seized in America last year by law enforcement was laced with xylazine. Xylazine is a horse tranquilizer. There is no way to turn off its effects. If you get hit with xylazine, you are DRT. You are not going to survive, and Narcan isn't going to do a dang thing. Narcan only works against opiates. So with that being said, just some great news here. We have a new opiate that has now found its way onto our streets, and it's called cyclorphene, and it's 10 times more potent than the base analog of fentanyl. There's 1,400 analogs of fentanyl. We have signatures on about 200 of them. Remifentanil, carfentanil, about 50 times more powerful than the base analog. But this new one, just its base analog is 10 times more powerful. Now, the good news is it's an opiate, which will react favorably to Narcan if necessary. So with that being said, Khalid, are there any lessons from the Cold War era where we had civil defense networks? You remember when we grew up, there were the big war sirens, like bombing sirens in every city in America. Is there any lessons from back then when there was always this concern that the Russians would come over the North Pole and hit us? So we had, civil defense networks, we had warning systems, We had alarms, well, big horns, basically. Are there anything from that era that could help today as far as the drone threat's concerned?
Well, Chris, the first problem we've got is the U.S. government's got to realize that this threat is real. It's not some kind of fictional movie that's being made and people are just kind of passing this along. As long as the government doesn't accept the fact, I mean, when we talk about Kash Patel, the reason I hammer him so much is if he had not taken this thing so lightly, we would have solved 90% of the problem in the past 18 months. But the fact that you have a director of the FBI who doesn't accept the problem until it actually presents itself as a massive problem, you cannot use the defense systems that you have existing in your country. There are outstanding civil defense systems in the U.S. back from the Cold War that are still effective in being able to use. But again, the government has to accept that problem is real. Until that happens, you don't have a solution. And the problem, the fear I have right now is it's going to take a terror attack for the government to wake up and say, holy shit, we've been sleeping all this time. And all of a sudden, then you're going to see Patriot Act 3.0 come into play, not even 2.0, but 3.0 come into play. And it's not going to be civil defense, it's going to be a police state. So my fear right now is even though the U.S. has all of the technology it needs to be able to defend its people, until the government accepts that there is a problem and they need to solve the problem is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Again, you're just a bundle of joy.
Fountain of happiness.
What's your advice for communities that actually have networks that are paying attention? What are the actions that they need to do? They need to have in their SOP, let's say in the first 90 seconds of spotting, let's call them aggressive drones that stand out, that they're clearly on a mission or they're already dropping into homes doing kamikazes. What needs to be done? What are the first 3 actions?
Well, the first thing I go 3 steps. I don't know if they're still available in the US, but if you remember back during football season, you could sit inside of a football stadium and you had those horns that were in a gun inside of a can, the alert horns. If you spot a drone that looks aggressive in your neighborhood, grab one of those cans and let that noise loose so people hear it. It will automatically get people's attention. People will come to the window, they'll come to outside, and they'll be looking around to see what's going on. At that point, then you can start telling people, look, there's something in the air. You need to, pay attention. That's the first step. The more important step is you need to have people watching. Everyone has cameras on their homes now. Everyone has surveillance cameras on their homes now. It will not hurt you to put a surveillance camera on your roof just to monitor the sky. That is for your protection. It's not that you're wasting the money. 1 or 2 cameras on your roof that are just monitoring the sky so you can see if something's in the air is something that's an advantage to you, because something flies by, someone puts something in the air, a drone is headed for a landing, you can track that through your cameras. So a lot of people need to understand that this threat is real. And the way to counter this threat, because it is such an immature methodology of attack, you can use basic methods, basic technology to track it, monitor it, and warn people. But you have to take it seriously.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people are. Although with this recent FBI warning, I think that some people, some of the normies are starting to wake up. So we're going to move into segment number 5, legal boundaries and the hard truth about shooting down drones. And stick with us, because after segment 5, we're going to discuss the things that you can do, the practical payoff in light of tonight's episode, and I have some short videos and gear to show you. That's a really easy way for you to hide in plain sight from some types of drones. So under current federal law, an unmanned aircraft in flight, regardless of its intent, is classified as an aircraft, and interfering with it carries serious federal, criminal, and civil liability that every prepared American must understand before they act. The legal framework for countering hostile drones currently authorizes only 4 federal agencies to take kinetic or electronic countermeasures against UAVs, That leaves the state and local law enforcement largely without authority, and private citizens 100% with no, legal permission to take them down. And until Congress closes this legal gap between the threat environment and citizen authority, the most legally defensible and operationally effective tools available is, documentation, reporting, community communication, and put some pressure on elected officials. So with that being said, let me get us over on another stage here so that I can show the first of two interesting videos on this topic. And Randy alluded to them as well. So I want to make sure I get everybody on stage. There's Cleet right there. Okay, so this, by the way, video number 1 is Florida Man 1, and video number 2 is Florida Man 2. So if anything crazy is happening, for a fact it's right here in Florida. Now, this is on TikTok. I don't use TikTok. I don't have it on my phone. And the web interface is kind of like Instagram, where you basically have to reload the page to get it to start. So let's get it fired up here. For some reason,
took out his pistol to protect himself against a Walmart delivery drone.
Let me refresh.
Watch as the man who is facing multiple charges.
God, I hate these shitty platforms.
A drone fly over your house and you shoot at it, I'm gonna be real blunt with you and ask. Yeah.
This Florida man took out his pistol to protect himself against a Walmart delivery drone. Watch as the man who is facing multiple charges remains remarkably calm.
Right there. Sitting straight above it?
Straight above me.
Do you have any idea?
Hovered, lowered some kind of cord down or something, turned around and sent something back up, and then after it was shot at, it turned around and went north. How much trouble am I in?
Quite a bit.
What am I going to do? I'm going to lie?
True. You want to hang out underneath it, it's got the rain?
A cord or something.
72-year-old Dennis Wynn was read out his Miranda rights, but he remained more fussed about the weather.
You're for sure it was over your driveway. Yeah. What were you thinking when you saw this thing over your driveway?
There was some smart kid that got a gift for graduation and was playing a peeping Tom.
The drone was actually part of a Walmart delivery service, which has completed over 20,000 safe delivery services over the last 2 years and can help vulnerable households.
I don't need another one, please. I lost too much equipment now.
You don't have any guns on you, right?
He doesn't have any on him.
All right, they're fine.
I'm just wondering. You're good. Hey,
Officers then confiscate the pistol Dennis used to shoot down the drone, but he remains unfazed.
You want this affidavit or no?
Just put it there so it don't get wet. So
I'm going to wind up having to find a real good defense lawyer.
Officers then go to inform his wife that he is facing charges.
her name?
So what's the
Patricia.
Patricia. Okay.
She's probably crying.
How do you take me to jail?
How about this? You want a coffee in the front?
Whatever you need to do by protocol.
You ready?
Yes, so.
All right.
Yes. I love you. Okay.
Dennis Wynn was charged with shooting at an aircraft, criminal mischief causing over $1,000 in damage, and discharging a firearm on residential property.
So I've got another video, but let's get everybody lined up here so each of you have a chance to take a swing at it. Jeff, your comments on that first.
Well, like I said, you can't just shoot at drones. And in this case, the drone was legit, doing legit business, and the guy just blew it out of the sky. Good shot, though. I mean, shooting a 9mm and hit a drone with one shot, that's pretty damn good.
I've got a great audience poll here. If all the married men out there have ever got the look that he got from his wife, put a 1 in the live chat. If you've ever got the look that she gave him, because she sure wasn't happy with them, 1 in the live chat. Randy?
Well, I think it's a bunch of bull crap. You know, a drone is not a freaking aircraft. It's not a fuselage. There's no human life on it. And that is really why we have the protections on aircraft that we do, right? Certainly civilian airlines, they're carrying souls on there, people. So I think it's a bunch of bull crap that they made this kind of law. And I don't know if it was Father Duck or somebody said, they probably did it because they knew at some point they were going to use these drones. And it pretty much leaves us defenseless against drones, legally anyway.
Yeah, 100%. Khalid, go ahead and comment on it as far as America's concerned, but what are the laws? Like, I know you said that you have to have special licenses and all that stuff for drones over there, but what are other countries doing as far as giving citizens the right to defend themselves, or are we all basically in the same boat around the world?
No, a lot of countries have given their citizens the ability to shoot down a drone that they believe to be hostile.
Okay.
And they've made it's kind of like the stand your ground laws in Florida, where if you think that is coming to attack you, you can shoot it down.
Okay.
And the way you shoot it down is up to you. Throw rocks at it, you pull a shotgun and fire at it. That's up to you. In Pakistan, for example, here, if we see a drone in the air, number one, they're banned in Pakistan right now. You cannot fly a personal drone inside of Pakistan right now because of the war with Afghanistan. So that's cleared a lot of airspace for us. So now if you see a drone in the air in Pakistan, you have complete right to shoot it down, because military drones fly at a much higher height than what a civilian drone would fly at. So you're not going to be able to shoot down a military drone, but these Taliban drones that are flying, you can see them, you can hear them, so you can shoot them down.
I got some breaking news, by the way, and not joking either. U.S. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's security officer has been shot and killed by Dallas police SWAT officers while under investigation for impersonating a law enforcement officer. And actually goes on to say, no, there's nothing else here of note. So that's an interesting development. She's a strange person for sure, but
it shows the kind of people they're hiring, right? That's what it definitely shows.
Yeah, I mean,
because if you did any kind of a background check and you want somebody that had moral, ethical lines, you wouldn't hire somebody like that.
Well, I was going to say you can take the hood rat out of the hood, but you can't take the hood out of the hood rat. But that's not very politically correct. So
well, not only that, she's not a hood rat. She was never born, didn't live in the hood. She likes to pretend she is. But it's a fake. It's an act.
So
she grew up with money. She went to a private school.
Okay, so you can take the pretend hood rat out of the pretend hood.
And you could be very well right, Chris, about the guy that got shot dead.
Could be.
I don't know who he is, so you very well could be right.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with him either, but this just happened. So this just happened as well not too long ago. This was last year, about a year ago, last March. A Florida man shot sheriff's drone and then rammed fences in the neighborhood in a rampage. 2 minutes and 26 seconds. We'll probably play most of it. This is definitely a Florida thing, by the way. Shit like this never happens in any other state. We're blessed to be the only state that has Florida, man.
Lay on the ground, face down. Spread your hands out. Spread your hands out all the way.
All new at 6, dramatic body camera video from Lake County deputies. They say the man on the ground right there shot down their drone after going on a neighborhood rampage. This is Justin Kress. Police say he is the neighbor that no one wanted.
Yeah, he's accused of knocking down fences, shooting at dogs, and being an overall menace to the community in rural Lake County near Eustis. Fox 35's Marlisa Goldsmith joins us live with this story. All new at 6. Marlisa.
Well, John and Luann, this picture is just one of the fences that deputies say that suspect rammed down with his Suburban. When deputies got there, the suspect was less than welcoming. Now, this is actual video taken from the sheriff's drone. There you can see the suspect aiming a shotgun at the device. He fired multiple times, destroying the $25,000 piece of equipment. This led to a standoff with the SWAT team, and eventually he was brought down to the ground.
Hey, there's no one in the house. It's just my dogs, man. Just leave them alone.
All right, this leg inside.
They might not take kindly to people dressed up like this.
1, 2, 3.
Hey, easy with my dog.
All right, we got you, dog.
4 different neighbors in Eustis tell investigators they found their fences in shambles, leading to thousands of dollars in damages. When deputies arrived, they say Kress even threatened to shoot them if they came inside his home.
So I think we can stop it there because it gets off the topic of drones. But Jeff, your comments first on that?
Well, can't shoot drones. You sure as hell can't shoot police drones. For a police drone, yeah, it makes sense. They can get in, they can see, without putting their own officers in danger. And I know Randy said there's not a person on a drone, so when you shoot them, well, that's why you're not being charged with attempted murder or felony assault or anything else. It's a property crime basically, but it's still a crime. And when you start shooting at stuff in the air, they've got to assume what if it's a big drone and maybe it's the size of a freaking Piper Cub or something? You never know. They don't want people shooting in the sky. Plus, when you shoot in the sky, if you miss, which you're going to, the bullet's going to come down somewhere. And you can be like those Iraqis who shoot their AKs in the air every time there's a wedding, and then people die because that crap comes back down and hits people.
John Fernandez thinks that maybe he didn't get his French fries with his order.
Maybe he didn't.
Brandy.
Well, I will say again, I go back to, even if it's a property crime, then it comes down to money, right? So the $200 drone should not be a felony. I'll stand by that all day long. There is no life on board. However, this is a $25,000 drone. That's a significant investment. And, oh, by the way, it belongs to the sheriff. So if you're a dumbass, go ahead and shoot that thing down.
You don't know how much the drone costs before you shoot at it.
Well, that's
if it turns,
yes.
If someone shoots at your car, are you going to be pissed?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
But there's people inside the car.
Even if you're not in it, it's still a crime. And it's.
I didn't say it wasn't a crime, Jeff. I just said it shouldn't be a felony unless it crosses the threshold.
Just don't be stupid.
Yeah.
Khalid.
Regardless.
Well, look, again, the problem is when you use a drone in the U.S. because it becomes so common for drones to be used for delivery, for surveillance, for real estate, you can't determine what drone is hostile and what drone is not hostile.
Yep.
That's where your biggest problem is right now. Because when you say that, okay, a police drone will look like this and those are the only drones allowed in the air, then people know that if there's something other than a police drone in the air, it's a hostile drone. But when you got Amazon, UPS, food delivery coming by drone, how do you know which one's hostile? How are you able to identify which one is targeting you, which one's there for surveillance, and which one's actually there for delivery, for legal purposes? They've got to make this clear somehow as to how these drones are used.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have to make that determination yet, but trust me, it'd be less like World War II. All those both sides knew the sound of the enemy aircraft in an instant. Why? Because many people were killed by. Well, I'm just saying, once that happens, people will know the difference. But at this point in time, you're right.
That's my problem, Randy. We're at that point right now because until you take this seriously and understand that these drones have been used for the last 2-3 years to run surveillance by terrorists.
I get that, Khalid. I'm just saying people aren't going to know the difference until it starts mattering.
That's my
problem.
But
when they start attacking and people start getting killed, then people will remember.
Well,
yeah, but again, Randy, it's that same concept of putting the cart before the horse. We have to wait for the attack to happen to create the law. That is out of my all of our wheelhouse, and they should be doing that, but they're not. It's no different than the FBI pretending like none of this stuff was going to happen, and now all of a sudden they are. It goes back to what I said. All of it's pretty much planned out, and they know exactly what's going on.
Maybe not, though. Let me start with Jeff. I'll give all three of you a kick at the can on this. Jeff, where is the intersection between self-defense, stand your ground laws, castle doctrine, and federal regulations as far as these things being considered planes? Because if a bunch of drones come into somebody's neighborhood and start dropping kinetic weapons or kamikazing, I'm going to shoot at everyone I possibly can. And I think I have a right to do that.
Because they have they violated the law and they've shown their intent. But just like you can't shoot at somebody who's walking down the street in front of your house because you think he might be hostile, he has to prove himself hostile before you can defend yourself. Someone breaks in your house, once they cross your threshold, they're going where they're not supposed to be. Okay, different story. But until someone, you can't just shoot someone because you think he might attack you.
I said Khalid doesn't agree with you. But
Well,
Clete, you go and then we'll let Randy back clean up. I'm joking, of course.
I agree with Jeff on the point that you cannot determine someone's intent until they've made a hostile action. I agree with that. But
you got to work
again,
on actions.
yeah, but see, Jeff, here's my problem is when you have law enforcement that is not aware of this threat being real, not looking at how these drones have been used in Russia, Ukraine, and the Middle East as a hostile tool. You have, again, when I say law enforcement has closed their eyes to a major threat to national security, I'm not playing this down in any way. We've seen this work. We've seen how it's operated. We've seen how it's been used. They look very harmless in the very beginning, but it's that harmless time that makes them hostile to us. And at some point, the lawmakers have to decide what classifies a drone as being hostile. Is there a certain
that's got to be determined? Just like, if someone has a dog that they sick on your neighbor, doesn't mean you get to go around and shoot every dog you see.
Exactly. But see, that law isn't there right now, Jeff. This is where my problem is that the government has not taken this seriously yet, that the drone can be used for hostile intent. And when you don't, you're after our guns. Yeah, but see, Jeff, you're after my guns. You're after my Second Amendment rights. Everywhere in the U.S., there's people trying to pass laws to take away my Second Amendment rights. But now the drone has become a Second Amendment issue because that is now it's a hostile device. Until the government decides that we're going to treat certain drones, make it so that, the drones that you can buy online, the drones you can buy in the stores, those have to be controlled in some way. You have to register them. You have to declare what they're going to be used for when you buy them, because we've got to develop some kind of system to be able to classify who's using what for what.
Well, you can declare it to be used for anything you want and not do it. You can say the same thing for guns. Okay, before you buy a gun, you got to say what it's going to be used for. Well, we would all have a coronary if they did that, and rightfully so.
Well, at some point, there's got to be some sort of legal verbiage, as we all agreed, that determines what makes this a hostile act with the drone and not. You know what I mean? Somewhere that line has to be drawn so that people know, and that's going to come from authorities, which we can't trust right now. So I don't know. It's a mess.
Well, I'm going to contend we don't need a new law if they take action. If you've got drones attacking a neighborhood, attacking a home, attacking people, whatever, it's game on. It's game on at that point. We don't need new laws, in my mind, at least here in Florida. Now, maybe in some other states, but I wouldn't think so here in Florida. So with that being said, oh geez, you know what? I keep screwing this up, Randy. I'm having a hard time adjusting the new format. All right, let her rip. 4, 3, 2, 1. It is time for the Carnivalt practical payoff. So what is the Carnivalt practical payoff? Well, the panel, we're going to throw some stuff out for 3 things related to tonight's conversation. A skill that people should acquire, an item that people should acquire, and a mindset shift that people need to get their heads wrapped around this whole new thing with drones. So, Jeff, I'm going to go to you. Pick one of the 3. I'm going to go last. Pick any one of the 3, skill, item, or mindset shift.
Well, I think with a skill, it's not so much a skill as something you got to train. If you see a drone, whether you have binoculars or a scope or something, look to see if it's carrying a payload. And if it has a big smile on it from Amazon, it's probably an Amazon payload. But short of that, a drone without a payload isn't that much of a threat. As a drone with a payload potentially is a threat. And that's what, if it's just a drone flying around with a camera, it's annoying, but it's probably not going to kill you.
You're saying that swooshy thing that's a smile? I thought it was like some sort of phallic symbol.
It looks like that, but it's supposed to be a smile because Amazon makes you happy.
Well, that's a dickhead thing to do. That's all I got to say.
Well, that tells you where your mind is, in the gutter.
You're right beside me. So is Randy and Khalid. Randy, skill, item, mindset shift.
So in light of tonight's topic, I recommend everybody buy them a shotgun and go out to the skeet and trap range and learn how to shoot moving targets with bird shot, because that's really what you're going to need.
At very close proximity, for sure.
Yep.
Khalid, skill, item, or mind shift, your choice.
Well, let's talk about mindset shift. Start understanding that you're not just looking left, right, and front and back. You need to start understanding that the attack can come from anywhere. And as long as you are believing that you only need to look around you to understand where the attack is coming from, you're going to miss the deadly bomb from the top. So that's your mindset shift. Secondly, the skill you need to learn is, and it's like I said earlier, you can put a surveillance camera on your roof and hook it up to your television to be able to see what's going on. It's not that you need to watch it, just hook it up to a recorder so it's just monitoring what's going on in the air. It's controlling your own airspace, basically. So if something flies over your house, you can at least report it to the police and say, look, here's the video of a drone flying over my house. What was it doing there? And someone can ask a question as to why it was up there.
Yeah, I like it. Khalid's version of restricted airspace.
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to point something out, dude. There's a guy named John Pyers that just made a comment from Facebook. So can you believe they're still streaming on Facebook, right? You haven't been cut off. I've never seen one from Facebook.
Yeah, you know, they they unsuspended us yesterday.
No way.
Yeah, way. I didn't appeal it or anything, so I figured it was a waste of time, but that's too much.
Very good.
So for me, I'm going to do an item, and I alluded to it last night. And I said that everybody should have an umbrella in their go bag, get home bag, bug out bag, whatever you want to call it. And I would go one step further and say that you should have, you know, camouflage style umbrellas. And this is all related to drones, by the way. So when we get into the videos, I'm fixing to show you this one. It blends in better in Florida, some element of coyote in it. And this one here is, as you can see, it's pretty dark camo, dark green camo, but you're going to see why in just a second. And the boys have already seen this stuff earlier. Jeez, isn't that awful? Y'all probably didn't even hear me there. Just a sec. Let me get this stuff back up here. It's
the volume cut too.
Yeah, it screwed up my config. So last night, pardon the technical glitch. This is the important part that I've been alluding to all night. When we wrapped up the podcast, I gathered up my stuff and I went outside. And this first video that I'm going to play you, it's only 10, 11 seconds long. This is shot with my phone and an Ace Beam flashlight. But that tells you how dark it is right there. Okay, now you get the lay of the land. And when I turn the flashlight off again, you'll see quite literally pitch black conditions. Okay, so let me show you this. That's color night vision shot at the exact same time. So in other words, I set down my phone and I fired this guy up. And it's, I don't know, 40 seconds long or so, but this is the same pitch black conditions with color night vision. And I'll step you through this. So I sped parts of this up, so because I really can't run that fast. So there's the two umbrellas that are sitting in front of me right now. Okay. And the reason I set it up the way I did it without walking back into that stand of bamboo trees is there's a couple points in the video where I want you to see the difference. So I'm going to pause it there for a second. I went half in the bamboo, half not. You can't see anything behind the bamboo at all. This is infrared color night vision, okay? And there's, by the way, this is with just the stock illuminator. There's nothing fancy going on with the illuminator. And again, pitch black conditions. So even with, you know, really high resolution imagery like this, you cannot see on the right-hand side of that umbrella that it's behind those bamboo shoots. So we'll keep playing it. And there we go. So this is the one that has brown in it. Now watch how important it is that you have camo that matches your hiding spot. Not too shabby. And you can see I popped up. I didn't see my shadow, so there's not 6 more weeks. And there you go, running towards the camera. So let's check this out, because this is thermal. And this is one of the scopes off of my rifles, thermal scope. It's 42 seconds long. Now, this is a smaller resolution than the last one was. So when I go out of frame, come back in, I sped that part up. But this is how good thermal has got these days. So, by the way, what you saw that stump and me squatting right here with the umbrellas in the last video. So that's pitch black, and I'm glowing like there's no tomorrow. And you can see that, yep, I didn't see my shadow. It's all good. You can see anything that's touching me has got the heat signature, and anything that's not touching me doesn't. Now, you can see the difference in colors right there, okay? So this is the darker one, and you can see how it blends in better to the stand of trees versus the brown one. But once you go inside a stand of trees, which is what your SOP should be, and there it gives you an idea of how bright it is. This is pitch black thermal imaging. Once you get into a stand of trees, in this case a stand of bamboo, nobody's going to see you because your temperature doesn't translate through the air gap to the umbrella. You know, you don't have to have an expensive umbrella. A cheap umbrella should be in everybody's go bag in case you encounter drones. And you'll see the same end of the video as the last one. These were shot side by side, running at the exact same time. And there you have it. So that's why I said last night, everybody should have an umbrella in their go bag. So for those of you who are wondering, by the way, I showed those videos to a few people today, and I asked one of them, I said, how much do you think that color night vision was? And the responses were anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 for that color night vision. You all ready for this? I'm going to share this link in just a second. They're on a Kickstarter right now from Akezo. And if you've watched any of my past NVG videos, you know I've done a bunch of stuff with Akezo. So they were on a Kickstarter at $159, but as you can see, they've sold out. It's terribly unfortunate, but oh, look at this. You can get that color night vision unit for $169 right now on a Kickstarter. Now, the thermal scope, which is super high-end thermal scope relative to a $200 IR unit, is right now about $2,400, but this is the one that I took the images with. I have another Hydra that's a couple levels below this. That's, I want to say it's like $700-800. I'll throw some links out there for those of you who are interested in it. But here you go. You can see it firsthand. That is the color night vision. You know what? I'll do something here just so you can see it a little bit better. So that's all there is to it. You can put this on a tripod. It comes with this, you know, a bracket where you can mount it. Pardon me, I'm getting out of frame there, but you can see how small it is. And I'll tell you one of the nice things about the DNT thermal scopes like this one. This is, for what it cost not that many years ago, a unit like this was $5,000 to $7,000. So $2,400 for a unit of this quality. This has got better imagery than any other night vision optic that I have. But anyway, I don't know if y'all want to comment on hiding yourself from drones, but Randy, if you got any comments, you go first, then Jeff, then Khalid.
Well, I saw someone in there. Just make sure it's a dark one, like black or very dark, because as you saw, it made a difference.
Yep.
In building yourself with the background, certainly with trees and stuff like that. You know, it was funny when you showed that. It's a little different topic, but I went back to when they changed this to ACU uniforms, and we were all like, "What in the fuck are these people doing?" And we did. We went and hung a BTU top out in the wood line, and we hung an ACU top. And we got a couple 100 meters to 300 meters away. You could still see that ACU top, but you could not see the BTU top. So you just make sure you get a dark umbrella. There you go. Or that.
Okay,
that'll work.
Yeah. So you can get this in different colors on Amazon. It's $9.99. It's called RIT dye. You can see RIT, and this is black. This takes fabric that is reflecting infrared, and it absorbs the infrared. And it works exceptionally good. So some of you might remember that Mike Sterling and I did some coverage on some plate carriers that were terribly, for lack of a better term, offensive under IR. They had components that lit up like a Christmas tree. $9 bottle of RIT dye off of Amazon, and it absorbs the IR instead of reflecting it, and you're good to go. Jeff, any comments on?
No, I got to roll out because my wife's is giving me the evil eye on dinner. So
fair enough. All right, thanks.
All right, see you guys.
Take care, Jeff.
Khalid, you get final kick at the can on that topic.
This people have got to start understanding. You've got to start protecting yourself. When you shared the pictures of the way that umbrella worked, I was like, dude, I wonder if that works with canvas, the plastic canvas, and put RIT on top of that and see if you can disappear from the drone, because we operate in team format. So it carrying everybody trying to hide it behind an umbrella makes us an easy target. But if we can throw a tarp over top of us and hide behind that, that gives us a very safe way to work. But again, you've got to take this threat seriously. This is a real threat.
This umbrella, and I purposely did this, was $19 on Amazon. It's probably worth about $5, to be honest with you. This one was $29. For your average person who has any concern, as you should be, over drones attacking your area, and it can happen to you. It doesn't just happen to other people, like Jeff said last night. That's pretty cheap insurance and costs next to nothing, and you don't have a weight penalty really for your bag. It doesn't weigh very much either. The other part to it that Mike from Grand Thumb pointed out last year is that the SOP is this. If you see drones coming, they're offensive, you're outside, get to a stand of trees if you can. And when you get to the stand of trees, get in deep as best as you can, because you're not going to see like Hollywood where drones are whizzing through the trees. Doesn't happen. FPV drones being controlled by somebody, and it's just not going to happen. They move too fast, and it's too jittery, and they would hit trees. But what Mike pointed out was that if you can go into, if there's any type of incline, any type of hill, mountain, whatever that has trees on it, and you go into those and the drone is looking at you horizontally, you've got all of these trees essentially stacked up, blocking that drone from seeing you. If they end up over top of you, well, then you have to have your umbrella on top of your head. And I didn't come up with this idea, by the way. My youngest son has spent the past 2 years training 5-man teams at Fort Benning on what to do if they encountered FPV drones. And this is an official DOW SOP, by the way, and that's where I got it from. So I'd like to say it was my idea, but it wasn't. Randy, Khalid, and I are going to do a sit rep. You're welcome to stick with us, or you can bow out. It's entirely up to you.
Well, I'm gonna go because we're about to cook. But I just want to say, again, put it out there for Father Duck people. Randy at survivaldispatch.com. Now he's got 3 storages to get rid of. You don't need to send me your list. You can send it to him. Just email me and I will hook you up. Also, keep in mind, he's got pretty much standard packages that he's going to be sending everyone. He's got a certain amount of stuff in there. So sometimes your list may not match up with what he has. So let's just, and give him a little time, because there's been a lot of response and it's going to take him a minute to get all caught up. So anyway, hey, thank you guys. Thanks, Chris. Good to see you again, Khalid. And I guess I'll catch y'all Monday.
We'll see you Monday. Yeah,
Yep.
sounds good. Thanks, Randy.
Yep.
The rest of y'all out there, hang with us. Khalid and I are going to do a sit rep just like we did last night. There's all kinds of craziness, of course, going on in the world. Before we do that, I wanted to get as much ground in as we could on the drone stuff tonight. But I have to mention our premier sponsor, Carnivalt, carnivalt.com. There's how you spell it right there, carnivalt.com. You can get a subscription from these guys, 100% American meat, by the way, no mRNA, no antibiotics, no histamines, and lock in your meat price for 12 months. It's freeze-dried meat, 25-year shelf life. It doesn't have to be refrigerated, and it reconstitutes in about 10 minutes flat. You put a bit of salt in with the water, and then you throw it air fryer, frying pan with some beef tallow, whatever you want. There's so much garbage in our food supply today. This is the best source of protein, the safest protein you'll find, and you lock the price in. Last year, from the beginning of 2025 to the end, they had a 49% increase in the wholesale cost of beef. Where else are you going to get a 49% year over year return on your investment? So go sign up for a Carnival subscription. And then each month, do me a favor, forward the receipt to support at survivaldispatch.com. And every month that you do it, I'm just going to keep extending your SDN Guardian membership an extra month, an extra month, extra month. You'll never pay Survival Dispatch another penny as long as you have a subscription to Carnival or our friends at Wasatch Wagyu. If you want to try the juiciest jerky ever made in the world because of the good fat that's in Wagyu cattle, this is it. There's no jaw workout or anything like that. I make sandwiches out of this one here. This is my favorite, but I'm pretty sure none of y'all like it, so don't buy the dill pickle. I told Greg Wasatch I'll look after it myself. It's my cross to bear. It's amazing stuff. If you don't like that style and you would prefer like regular sticks of jerky, they've got some like this one here is nothing but beef and sodium. There's no flavor, extra flavoring or anything like that. So if you go to Wasatch Wagyu.com, and I'm going to put links to everything when Khalid's talking, and you sign up for a subscription there, you can take the price from $6, because again, this is beef that costs $100 a pound. I shit you not. 100% Wagyu beef. You can knock it all the way down to $6 or $3, pardon me, and 70 cents a strip if you go for the Mac Daddy of the subscriptions. It goes basically $5.31 if memory serves me right, $4 and change, $3.70. Same deal. Forward the receipt to support at survivaldispatch.com. You get your free Guardians membership. Your Guardians membership gets you access to over 20 Intel channels. You get access to Khalid and the rest of the Survival Dispatch team. You get behind the scenes content. You get early intelligence. You get all kinds of stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else. You get discussions on survival and prepping food, growing food, you name it, gear discussions on things like this. And I'm going to put all the links out there because Khalid's going to speak. Khalid, you got to speak for at least 10, 15 minutes. And so I can get all of the URLs in there and get a cup of coffee, because I don't eat much. I just run on coffee. But again, you get the free Guardian membership. If you don't get the free Guardian membership, it's only $9.99 a month or $99.99 a year. And you also get enrolled in the SDN system, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. When we send out SHTF alerts, they go to your email, they go to Substack, they go to the SDN's channel on Element, they go to POCLink radios if you have POCLink radios, they go to our old Signal channel, and I'm in the process of getting ready to build out a shortwave HF network as well. So if we end up in a Walking Dead scenario, we will have an SOP to get emergency information out to everybody over the air with no reliance on any infrastructure whatsoever. So Khalid, do me a favor, be very verbose, speak for 10, 15 minutes. Let me gather up all the links for everybody and refill my coffee, and I'll let you know when I'm back, brother.
Okay. Let's take you through the different conflict zones, because there's a lot going on that people are not aware of. So let's take you through the conflict zones. Let's start with Iran. This is breaking news. It's broken on social media right now. President Trump has put it up on Truth Social as well. They have hit Karg Island, which is 90% of Iran's oil is generated from that island. And Donald Trump has put out on his Truth Social account, and I've seen the tweet, so I'm referencing that. They have wiped it out. That's a huge strike. That is a huge strike. When you cripple a country economically, you are able to collapse a regime. This is how you actually collapse a regime. It cannot be done through riots. It cannot be done through protests. When you're doing it that way, you are wasting your resource and you're wasting your effort. When you can economically collapse a country, you have literally collapsed the regime. Now, we've talked about this in the past, how bad the economic conditions in Iran were. Buying a loaf of bread is something I think is around 400,000 Irani lira. So a lot of people aren't able to buy food. And that was where we saw those initial riots start from, was because of the economic conditions. That turned into a sponsored color revolution where they were trying to overthrow the regime that way. What the US is doing right now, economically crippling Iran, is the way you are able to collapse a regime. That's how it's done. A lot of people need to pay very close attention to what's going on in this region because, see, your mainstream media is covering Iran, 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 Iran. That's all they're talking about right now. They're not paying attention to what's going on in Afghanistan. The reason, and I had a very close friend of mine who is also a former spec ops guy, was talking to me today about how there's no coverage of what's going on inside of Afghanistan. Afghanistan right now is in the throes of a collapse. The regime is in trouble in Afghanistan. Pakistan has done a three or four step process. Number one, we've deported every single Afghani we could get our hands on in Pakistan. We have sent, in the past 3 months, something in the neighborhood of 2.5 million Afghanis back to Afghanistan. They were deported by force, and it's something that it's a reason why I believe it needs to be done in other countries as well. Because once you remove the problem from your country, you're able to control the issue that is going on in your country. Number two, the airstrikes we're carrying out in Afghanistan. We have been carrying out for the past 2 weeks very targeted, specific airstrikes in Iran. In Afghanistan. We have hit military depots. We have hit military command centers. We have hit military bases. We have gone after Taliban leadership wherever we were able to find them. This attack has been going on. Now, the thing people need to understand is that China has now stepped in and they're trying to negotiate a ceasefire between Pakistan and Afghanistan. What Pakistan has said is that we are not interested in a ceasefire at this point. And and if anyone saw my tweet earlier on X, while the Afghanis were carrying out the drone strike inside of Islamabad, the Chinese delegation was negotiating with Pakistan, trying to get them to agree to a ceasefire of some kind. And it just infuriated Pakistan even more that we were hit with 4 kamikaze attacks on our military bases very close to the Afghan border, and they were carried out by terrorists that are inside of Afghanistan. They're inside of Pakistan right now. They're members of the Taliban Pakistan, the TTP. It's a sister organization of the Afghan Taliban, fully supported, fully funded by the Afghan Taliban. So they carried out 4 kamikaze strikes on bases inside of Pakistan. That infuriated Pakistan again. What we're going to see is over the next couple of days, again, there's going to be major airstrikes inside of Afghanistan. We have commandos on ground. We have military forces on ground. We have started to establish a buffer zone inside of Afghanistan. We are now actively moving towards a regime change. And the regime change we're looking at is the Taliban will no longer exist. We are looking to bring Ahmed Massoud and the people that actually can lead Afghanistan peacefully and successfully into power. The fact that it's not being covered in the Western media is something that you guys need to understand, because what we're doing right now affects the US. And how does it affect the US? These terror groups that are operating inside of Afghanistan have lost command and control. They've lost all their weapons. All the weapons the US left behind are pretty much turned to wasted piles of metal now. That carries a huge impact on the Western world, whether it be Europe or whether it be the United States. These are things that the U.S. should have, and I've said this over and over, the U.S. should have done this themselves. They shouldn't have been pushed to Pakistan having to do it, because a regional war is never good for anybody, especially when the regional war is a military against a terrorist force. That means you are going to have civilian casualties. Whether you like it or not, you are going to have civilian casualties. That's important to understand. Now, there are a lot of people talking about how the Taliban is linked with Iran. Number one, the speech that you heard from the Ayatollah yesterday on Irani TV, and it's been covered very heavily on the Western media. The new Ayatollah is in the hospital. He is in a coma. He did not write that speech. The IRGC wrote that speech. They broadcasted that speech with the Ayatollah's name. Now, many people don't know this. If you're not in our element chats, you don't know this information that we've been putting up in the element chats. The Ayatollah, the Khomeini's son was declared the Ayatollah of Iran on the IRGC's orders. The assembly of experts were not on board with selecting him as the leader. They were forced by the IRGC to take him. Now, the problem with Khomeini's son is that he is much more hardline than his father was. He has always been saying, I want to carry forward a nuclear program. So if he dies from this coma, from what we're hearing about him in the hospital, and we're getting reports directly from Tehran on his condition. If he dies, the next guy in line to be selected, the guy that we were expecting to be selected as the Ayatollah, is much more, how do I say this? Much more friendly towards the Iranian people. So a lot of the hardline stances that Iran has taken with its people will start to disappear. The IRGC will not support that. So what you're going to see is the IRGC is now going to carry out asymmetric warfare in different areas to extend this war as much as they possibly can. Can we say that Iran has been successful? No. But for Iran, success means that they just need to survive the onslaught from Israel and from the US. If they're able to survive, they will win. That's the victory for them. You can economically collapse everything they have, but in the process of economically collapsing them, even if you get regime change, they have no way to earn money. So you have a problem you have to deal with there. Now, I don't know how many of you have seen the report we put out on Iran's Mosaic defense doctrine. It's on our website. It's in the assessment section. If you want to download it, it'll give you a lot of understanding of how the IRGC operates. The IRGC operates from the point of view of knowing that we will be completely wiped out. Their leadership understands we will all die. So what they have done is they've developed a decentralized command structure. You have IRGC commanders sitting all over the world that are coordinating with their sleeper cells, with the people in Hezbollah's Unit 910, with Hamas, with the PMU, with the Shia militants in Iraq, and working to use them to create more problems. You also have the IRGC working with professional Iranis. Now, again, the term professional needs to be understood. We talked about this last night. Professional means that these are doctors, they are engineers, they are radar technicians, they are radiology technicians, they are teachers. They have access to certain materials that Iran can use to create a dirty bomb in the Middle East, in Europe, just getting information from different materials from different places where they work. If you download the report we wrote on the Mosaic defense structure, you'll understand how Iran operates, and it will make a lot of sense to you based on how the U.S. is attacking Iran right now and how they're able to continue firing back. They are not working from the point of view of we will survive. They understand we will not exist. The IRGC and the command structure and the regime structure is 5 levels deep. So they already have the next guys in line. You kill one, the next guy is ready to take over. You kill that guy, the next guy is ready to take over. Then they have an external system that operates. That external system runs all the sleeper cells. So if you wipe Iran off the map, gone completely, you still have to deal with the threat of the sleeper cells, the asymmetric warfare that Qasem Soleimani created. That is the threat that we need to worry about. Now, how is Iran going to attack? They are going to be looking at synagogues. They're going to be looking at schools. They're going to be looking at churches. Those are their primary targets because those targets are soft targets. They deliver the most psychological damage they possibly can. Again, when you are talking asymmetric warfare, you're not talking about conquering an enemy. You're talking about delivering a psychological impact that we can hit you in your home. That's important to understand. You also need to understand that, and somebody talked about this online with us a while ago, um, that the IRGC has put out $100,000 bounty on every member of military personnel that has operated inside the Middle East. $100,000 for any military personnel that operate in the Middle East. Now, connect that back to I think it was September or October, when Southern Command put out a notification to all spec op operators and told them that they are being directly surveilled, they are being directly targeted by foreign forces. They were not clear in who was targeting them. But at the same time, in the month of November, I believe it was, and we broke the story on SDN, that the Taliban had made a deal with the IRGC that if the Iranian regime were to recognize the Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan, they would develop a partnership with them. And as a good faith gesture, they handed over the entire biometric database that was left by the US in Afghanistan. Now, why is that important? If you watched the program last night, you'll remember me discussing a surveillance tool used by the Iranian regime called called FindFace. FindFace is a Russian technology that was made for intelligence purposes that was quietly handed over to the Iranian regime. That regime has now used that tool inside of Iran to be able to track dissidents. Once you're able to track dissidents, you were able to understand where they are, how they're moving, who they meet with, and build out their networks. That same system has been deployed to assets outside Iran, which means that is operational in the US right now. That surveillance network is being used by RGC commanders, sleeper cells inside the US to target people they want to hit. That's very dangerous, because that means if they have a profile on you, they can find you. Once they find you, they can track you. Once they can track you, they can carry out an assault on you. So understanding how the Iranian model works is very important. You can cripple Iran as much as you want. The problem with Iran is asymmetric warfare, and their asymmetric warfare is an unbelievable level that they operate at. We've studied it in great detail, and maybe one of these days I'll do a program on how asymmetric warfare has matured because of what Iran has done, what the Ukraine has done, and what terror groups have been able to achieve with asymmetric warfare. It's changed the model. Last thing I'm going to say, we've been talking about drone attacks. I'm going to look for the link that a captain in the U.S. Air Force wrote. I think it is on the West Point website, where he wrote a detailed article on lessons learned from drone warfare in the Ukraine. It is a beautifully written article. The amount of information he gives you is just unbelievable. Once you read through that, it'll give you a lot more knowledge into how you can combat, understand drone warfare. And with that, I will pass it back to Chris. You're not there you go.
There we go. Get it all fixed up again. All right, Cleet. Thank you. Appreciate that. Got the links out to everybody. Got a fresh coffee. Had 6 sticks of Wasatch Wagyu beef jerky. Good to go. Just like that. So give me a second here to get my X bookmarks up and running, because that's what we're going to discuss, just like we did last night. Here we go. And apologies. Changes things a little bit when we lose the other guys. But bookmarks. Here we go. All right. First one, Khalid. Dying to hear your thoughts on this. I'm not going to play the whole thing. This is a couple hours ago. Breaking Manhattan. Crowds at the Al-Quds March kicking off from Times Square, openly chanting, "We support Hezbollah here. We support Hamas here." Gunther Eagleman says, "Deport these domestic terrorists." I'm not going to play the whole thing, but we'll play a piece of it.
We support Hezbollah here. Say it loud and say it clear. We support Hezbollah here.
that's enough of that shit.
Yep.
Khalid, comments on this. I mean, New York is fallen.
New York is gone. I mean, New York if we can forget New York now. I mean, even with Mamdani as the installed mayor, New York is gone. It's not even part of the U.S. anymore. And I think it's the same thing with California as well. But Chris, if you remember when those protests were going on in the U.S. where they were supporting the Palestinian cause, I said then that what they're doing is they're mentally preparing people for the understanding that Hezbollah and Hamas are freedom fighters. They are not terrorists. And that's what you're seeing right now in New York. The chant of we support Hezbollah and we support Hamas, that is not something that you would have heard 3 years ago. Now you have made it so acceptable that these are freedom fighters. They're not fighting for freedom. They are terrorists. They are known terrorist organizations. The fact that you've made it so legitimate now with all of the protests that went on at universities and in cities and no one took any action because of it, you've now made it acceptable for these kinds of chants to happen.
Well, I mean, let's watch another one here, Khalid. It's just mind-blowing that this is in America. It's 4 minutes long. I'm not playing the whole thing.
We proclaim our support for the Islamic Republic. Shame, shame, USA! Shame, shame, USA!
Yep, that's about enough of that shit. The comments, Khalid. I mean,
Chris, let's be really clear. I mean, I saw I saw a really interesting thing. Kimi Odama, she's a Japanese legislator.
Okay.
She's created a huge stir in Japan because she is, and this is one of the best titles I have ever heard for a member of government. She is the Minister for Foreign Relations and well-deserved people to live in Japan. She gave a speech the other day where she said, you know, you have a choice in Japan. You can either follow our culture and follow our laws and be respectful of it, or you can leave. It's just that simple. I'm starting to have a problem understanding why Germany, why Japan, why Pakistan, why the UAE all have no problem saying this openly and saying, if you're not going to follow our culture, if you're not going to follow our lifestyle, then go home to where you came from. The U.S. needs to take that position. Until the U.S. takes that position, you're going to have these lunatics walking around U.S. streets saying, freedom of speech, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. You're not freedom of speech. This is incitement.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, for sure. Let's go to the next one here, Khalid, because it's another great situation. Radical Islamist Kyle something, aka something, originally from Baghdad, Iraq, just got arrested after sneaking into Zwink Elementary School in Klein, Texas, armed with a gun and taser, decked out in full tactical military gear.
New details on a security breach at Zwink Elementary in Klein ISD that put the school safety protocols to the test. Police say an armed man in tactical gear managed to slip into the front office through an unlatched door. Fox 26's McKenna Earnhardt live at the school with more details. It's a pretty scary situation. McKenna?
Yeah, so what we've learned is that on Tuesday, a parent was leaving Zwink Elementary School right here and did not fully latch that door behind them. And so then 39-year-old Kyle Chris was able to sneak in behind them in just a 15-second period. So Chris was dressed in full tactical gear. And according to court records, he was armed with both a handgun and a taser. Now, Chris allegedly told police he was a security guard, but prosecutors revealed today that he is unemployed and is not a licensed guard or peace officer. Now, I spoke with the district about the 24-hour delay in notifying parents, and they tell me it was a tactical decision. They were working with both the FBI and DPS to keep Chris under constant surveillance. They say tipping off the public could have tipped off the suspect and jeopardized the arrest. The arrest did happen at his home just 4 minutes from the school.
It's alleged this 39-year-old defendant entered an elementary school dressed in tactical gear, armed with a taser, as well as a handgun. He fled quickly when asked for identification. This defendant is not a licensed peace officer or security guard. We ask you to order this defendant not to return to Zwink Elementary School in spring, especially not to go to any schools in the Klein Independent School District.
It was very scary. It is very.
I'm going to go ahead and pause it there, Khalid. How does somebody walk into a school dressed in tactical gear with firearms and manage to walk back out under their own power? What am I
missing? I'm reminded of that video that you played. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, where the lady walked up to the sheriff's deputy who was sitting outside of a school writing a report, and said, "Do you know how uncomfortable we feel with you sitting here?" That's exactly why they need to be there, because that guy would have never gotten to the door if someone had been sitting outside watching. What I'm wondering right now, Chris, is if this guy was able to walk in through a door just because someone didn't latch a door on their way out, have our schools become that unsecure that people can walk in with weapons without being noticed? I mean, how is there no surveillance cameras? How is that door not locked? Why do we have to lock the doors of our schools to keep kids protected now?
Well, because they're gun-free zones, and we can't trust teachers with guns. We do here in Florida, by the way. And somebody put a comment saying there's a cop in most schools. That's not the case nationally. That may be the case in your county, but there's plenty of counties that have no SO. There's no RSO, no nothing. So like a resource sheriff's officer sort of thing. So at the end of the day, my personal belief is, Khalid, is that teachers should be trained and carry, the ones who want to, and it should be publicized that the teachers are armed and trained. And then there's another device that's being made now where even a smaller person can grab a handle and pull this box that's bulletproof that goes in the corner of a classroom, and it deploys in about 10 seconds flat. If you want to speak a little bit further, well, here, let me do this. Let me get another one going. And while you're speaking about it, I'll go and take a look for the one I'm describing here. So breaking news, America just bombed a Russian cargo plane, just landed in Iran, and Russia's on the verge of war over this. What are your thoughts on this? I haven't had a chance to watch this video. I bookmarked it while we were live earlier, but hopefully there's something good here for you to chew on, Khalid.
America just bombed a Russian cargo plane that landed in Iran, and Russia is on the verge of war over this. Well, last night, the US released footage of them blowing up a Russian IL-76 cargo transport plane in Iran. When they released that footage, they said, quote, "The Iranian regime is losing its air power day by day." They also said, quote, "We are not only defending against Iranian threats, but systematically dismantling Iran's air capabilities." Now, it's worth knowing in the footage the US released, not only did they blow up this Russian cargo plane, but they also blew up an old American C-130, as well as that, a P-3 maritime patrol aircraft. Now, it's worth knowing, and it's believed, that this Russian cargo plane, this IL-76 that was blown up, was actually Iranian, and it was used by Iran. Russia does still use these planes, and they do still transport cargo to and from Iran using the planes. So, of course, there's the chance it could have been Russian, but it's likely that it was an Iranian cargo plane. And by virtue of the fact that Russia so far has not even issued a statement on this, it's likely it was an Iranian one that Iran had likely bought from Russia. But still, this was a big risk for the US. Maybe the US had intelligence confirming it was an Iranian plane, but there's always the chance that it could have been a Russian one. And if the US bombed a Russian cargo plane, that could have had much bigger effects. That could have resulted in a war. But Pete Hegseth, the US Defense Secretary, said, quote, "Our attack will continue until the enemy is completely defeated." And so that means the war will continue. So leave me a follow, because I'm going to keep you up to date on everything you need to know about this war.
Yeah, I don't know about some of that, Khalid. Do you want to slice and dice it?
Well, let's break this down. Russia has been a key ally of Iran for many, many years. They have supplied military weapons. They have supplied surveillance technology. They have helped Iran develop their weapons program. A lot of the drone warfare that you're seeing Iran use was developed in coordination with Russia and China. You're not talking about a country that is not involved. If you remember last week, when the war first kicked off, Donald Trump and President Putin both had a hour-long conversation on the phone where they discussed options on how to handle Iran, how to deal with the war that was going on. And we have to understand that, look, in our part of the world, in this part of the world, Russia and China are just as powerful as the US is. Not from the point of view of, military strength or economic strength, but their influence in this region of the world is very big. You are either close to Russia or you are close to China. Take, for example, Pakistan, where we have a very close relationship with China, whereas India has a very close relationship with Russia. So the two superpowers in our part of the neighborhood, in our neighborhood, in a simple way of saying it, exert their power wherever they can. Now, Iran, because, and I'm going to say this with the understanding that Donald Trump took way too long to hit Iran. You gave them the opportunity to get weapons in from China. You gave them the opportunity to get weapons in from Russia. They were able to load up on things that they're using now to hit targets in the Middle East, hit Israel, things that they wouldn't have had if Donald Trump had launched the attack like he did when he went after the nuclear facilities. When you have this kind of a delay, you allow your enemy to gear up. You also have a lot of weaponry that's been sold to Iran from Afghanistan, because Habibullah Akhundzada, who is the leader of the Taliban in Afghanistan, he's Iran's guy. He's Tehran's guy. That's why Hezbollah is able to have camps there. That's why Hamas is able to have camps there. That's why they're able to recruit Afghani Shias to join the axis of resistance that Iran runs. There's a lot of supply networks coming in. The potential of that being a Russian plane is there, but it's more likely it's an Iranian plane that's flown to Russia, loaded up with something, and came back. We'll never know what really happened, because neither Iran is going to tell us the truth, nor does the US going to tell us the truth, because you need ground assets to tell you what really happened, and neither country is going to tell you the truth right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So I found the one I was looking for here. Clee, check this out. West Elementary School in Alabama has become the first in the United States to install ballistic pods in classrooms. The $60,000 rapid deployment room sits in the corner of each classroom, can expand in just 10 seconds to create a bullet-resistant shelter for students and staff. It's designed to protect against active shooters as well as severe weather events like tornadoes. And David, the guy who posted, asked the question, is this needed in every school? I would say, yes, this is pretty slick.
It's that easy. From my point of view, whenever I first...
I'm going to stop it there. Some of the comments crack me up. There's no door. The shooter will just shoot them through the open door. There's a door on the inside. Frick.
Geniuses in the comments.
Special people sometimes. All right, let's go back to the jihadi threat. Tommy Robinson, who's over here these days, asks, is this the Sharia law that they call for? 44 seconds. I don't know that I'll play the whole thing. And you know what? I'm going to stop it right there, because I guarantee you this video will trigger
trigger it on YouTube.
Yep. CommieTube and Facebook would just let us back on. If we show that, they're going to smoke us. Now, let's put our tinfoil hats on here for a second. Alarm bells are blaring. Larry Silverstein now owns the second tallest skyscraper in Los Angeles, and people are connecting the dots. His skyscraper is the 72-story U.S. Bank Tower, and it's an astounding 1,018 feet tall. And the time is setting off serious red flags. California is now receiving warnings about possible retaliatory Iranian drone terror attacks. By the way, I've spoken to multiple law enforcement officers on the beat in California today, and at that level, not one bit of intelligence has been shared with those guys. Anyway, people are remembering something else. Just 2 months before 9/11 1.0, Larry Silverstein signed the lease for the World Trade Center. September 11th was the only day he wasn't there. This guy has a, prolific reputation for being the first one to work and the last one to leave work, and not figuratively speaking, physically speaking, but he didn't show up on September 11th, 2001. The only day ever they say that on a regular business day is not reported into the office for work. After the attacks, his companies received $4.5 billion in insurance payments. Now the same man owns another massive American skyscraper, not just any. This is the second tallest building in all of LA. Some call it business. Others say when you see this pattern, you start paying very close attention. What do you think happens next? So it's kind of this good timing, because Jeff, he's an engineer, and he believes that the towers legitimately fell on their own, that they essentially the superstructure melted under heat. He thinks that building number 7, which wasn't even physically connected, collapsed because of heat. And I don't, and Randy doesn't, and
I don't.
And you don't. Randy and I have agreed not to broach this topic with Jeff, because the last time we did it, he had veins popping out of his skull, and he got pretty fired up, which is fine. I respect his opinion. He's a super smart guy, but I don't believe for a minute that those buildings fell on their own. That was a controlled demolition. And anyway, now this guy's back in the game, I guess you could say. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I was talking about this in the Element chat earlier. I said, listen, I said this last night during the program as well, that, we know there's a couple of false flags coming. And we know it because of intelligence we've heard. It's because the opinion in the US is so much against the Iran war that they need to force it back the other way. And the only way to be able to do that is a mass casualty event. We know there's a false flag coming, and the false flag is going to be something that's going to happen completely controlled, completely under the alphabet soup. And they're going to do it to sway public opinion. Whether it is California, and Chris, I have a problem with it being California as well, because you've got Gavin Newsom. He is hated by the president. You've got a shitstorm of problems in California to begin with. True. It's a great way to swing the state into Republican favor by hitting the state itself. The problem with hitting California is it's not something that the jihadis would think of. It's that there's nothing there for them to really want to hit. There's not, unless you hit the Oscars, unless you hit a major Hollywood studio, unless you hit a big shopping mall, a school, a university, you're not going to achieve your target. And people don't understand it. My personal thinking is the false flag that will happen someplace in the Midwest. You have a huge Muslim population there. You have a lot of hostility towards the US there. It's very easy to orchestrate something like that there. Larry Silverstein is probably the luckiest person I have ever seen in my entire life. You bought the World Trade Center. You bought insurance for terrorism, which had never been heard of. You had bought an insurance policy for a terrorist attack on the World Trade Center, and then suddenly, like 2 months later, the World Trade Center is hit by airplanes from Al Qaeda, and you got a multi-billion-dollar payout because of it. There are a lot of dots to connect here, but I think some of the dots are a little too obvious, and we need to discount some of this.
Yeah, so as far as California is concerned, a few things that I would, speak to would be, number one, Coronado Island in San Diego.
Definitely.
So this is where DevGru is. So our Tier 1 SEAL Team 6 is there. I've communicated with 5 families. I actually have video of some scumbags trying to break into a common building in a complex where one of the Navy SEAL families live. It's a high value target, and it crosses a bunch of T's and I's for the jihadis, right? They get retribution against GWAT vets and very, high level GWAT vets. And tactically, it's a brutal place to be, right? If they take the bridge out, which is a small bridge, not like a big bridge, that place basically is shut off to mutual aid without people coming across in boats or by air, et cetera, et cetera. I think Coronado Island has to be at the top, number one. Number two, something else that has been on the jihadi list for 30 plus years, Golden Gate Bridge, because of the psychological impact of it. So, and there's some other stuff as well that I put on the 9/11 2.0 domestic destruction list. But I can't remember them all off the top of my head. It's like a 10,000 word essay.
I want to jump in on that Coronado Island. I had a conversation with some U.S. officials here in Pakistan, and I kind of explained to them how Coronado Island could be taken. And I shit you not, Chris, pin drop silence. Like, they couldn't believe how clear I was and how that could be taken and how it could be broadcast worldwide for the jihadis. Because you would literally take out the tier 1 operators and you would leave the U.S. defenseless. Because without your tier 1 operators, if an attack were to happen, a terrorist attack were to happen in the United States, you've lost the number 1 group that can actually combat them.
So the SEALs, that's where their headquarters is for tier 1 assets. But we've still got Delta Team, which you can argue back and forth as much as you want. But all the guys that I know at that level, they all say Delta Team's one notch above. I can't say it's so highly classified. Put it this way, but what if you're a tier 1 operator, you're essentially an Olympic level athlete who can run and gun and kill people, you know, like your Superman sort of thing. This is some footage from Coronado Island from a security camera. Unfortunately, all of the security footage that we got there were 2 attempted break-ins, 2 nights back to back, and these are the guys who did it. They're described as, again, the camera view is not great, but the people who took the videos, some of these videos were taken by hand. They're not security videos. They're described as, you know, young Hispanic guys. So, you know, we were hoping that maybe there'd be something where we could give it to the gang task force. We work with a couple of them in California to get an identification, but as you can see, it's just not good enough. There's more footage, but again, unfortunately, it's not enough to really identify anybody. But anyway, at the end of the day, but myself, Coronado Island, I think, is a big concern. Golden Gate Bridge is a big concern. Your points as far as like big studios are concerned, that's definitely a possibility. I will mention to everybody watching this out there, the 9/11 2.0 article that I did, which more than an article, it's a paper. It's ginormous. I'm going to put the link down below. Up until yesterday, it was for Guardians only. It's now open up for the public. It's probably, and Khalid contributed tremendously to it, by the way. It's probably the most comprehensive article out there on 9/11 2.0, period. It covers pretty much everything you can possibly imagine, right? So, actually, I can show it to you all right here. So this is it. 9/11 2.0 is taking shape. Just to give you an idea, this is how long this article is. Heavily researched by Khalid, heavily researched by me. We're now into the appendixes. These are all the cities that are being targeted if it's the Al-Qaeda way. 9/11 2.0 goes down one in two ways. It's either complex coordinated terrorist attacks or domestic destruction. Domestic destruction means they're going to be very specific targets here, right? So Golden Gate Bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, George Washington Bridge, Chesapeake Bay Tunnel, Verrazano Narrows Bridge, Hoover Dam bypass, electrical substations, Hoover Dam, Texas oil refineries, nuclear power plants, those key transmission lines and substation, fuel logistic nodes, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is accessible to the public. I'm going to put it in the live chat on all of the platforms right now. If you want to read it, make sure you have a pot of coffee at your disposal, not just a cup of coffee. And I wrote another article yesterday specific on the Iranian threat right here. And through the day yesterday, it was Guardians only, but it's now public as well. And it has very specific information from Khalid and me as far as the Iranian threat is concerned. So there's overlap, like Khalid has described, between all these shitbag jihadis. But there are some demarcation lines between IRGC, who have Hezbollah and Hamas basically as their, direct line of soldiers. And then you have Al-Qaeda that's put together. I think we got kicked off of Facebook. Well, that didn't last very long. Cleveland didn't even last 24 hours for crying out loud.
No, Facebook doesn't like us, man.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't aware, this is the very first time Khalid was on Survival Dispatch News last year. He didn't get 3 sentences out of his mouth, and we got a big warning in StreamYard, the platform. You said, yeah, you've been kicked off of Facebook.
Yep.
It's kind of like a badge of honor, to be quite honest with you.
I've lost count of how many times we've been kicked out of off of Facebook while I've been speaking, where a message just popped up. You are no longer streaming on Facebook. I went, oh, again, I said something that pissed off Mark Zuckerberg.
Well, yeah, clearly they love you. So check this one out. Moving along. Have not had a chance to verify this, but it would not surprise me knowing what I know about Toronto and Canada in particular. Mullah spotted in Toronto from Abu Dhabi. It's been reported that IRGC mullahs, officials, and leaders are fleeing out of fear of regime collapse. This mullah was spotted entering Toronto, Ontario, Canada on a flight from Abu Dhabi, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't know if you could possibly recognize him or not, Khalid. He's back there. He certainly looks the role, doesn't he?
Yep, he does look the role. And look at the family he's got behind him. All burkas.
Right there. That's him just coming into the. See if we can.
There he is.
A little bit right there. So
the problem here, Chris, we've talked about this before. Canada has 5 operational ISIS cells, and Toronto has one of the largest operational cells for ISIS. And the way ISIS is moving into the U.S. across the northern border, because no one's paying attention to the northern border at all. The U.S. government is more concerned about the southern border, and the northern border has been left completely open. Rochester, New York, and I have said this over and over and over and over. Rochester, New York is an entry point where these jihadis are coming into the U.S., being given fake identification, being moved around inside the U.S., being settled into homes, and nobody is doing anything about it. And this is why I get pissed off at U-size windbreaker. Because how do you not know? We're sitting in Pakistan and we know it. I have spoken to the Canadian intelligence. I've spoken to the Canadian Army. I've shown them the videos of Canadian Army serving Canadian Army soldiers that have pledged allegiance to ISIS. They've gone, what do you want us to do? And I've gone, what the fuck?
So I got a question for you. I meant to ask you offline, but we'll share it with the audience anyway. Obama used to always call ISIS ISIL, with the L referring to, the Levant. Yep. And because I can't stand Obama, and I always connected the acronym ISIL with Obama being a shitbag, that basically the guy who kicked off all the stuff we're dealing with right now, the first, Muslim who came in and tried to wreck our country. When I hear somebody say ISIL, I think that's a stooge. That's a government stooge. What am I overreacting, or what do you think?
No,
was a traitor.
Because look, ISIL was created. It was the original form of what ISIS is today. When you talk about ISIL, you're talking about what ISIS was created in Iraq after Saddam was taken out of power.
Okay,
they have morphed into the Islamic State now. Anyone who is any respectable analyst, counterterrorism official does not use the phrase ISIL. That doesn't exist anymore. It is now the Islamic State. It's ISIS. That's what everyone refers it to. Yes, there are different flavors. There's ISKP, there's ISC, there are different flavors, but ISIL no longer exists. And anyone who's saying ISIL now is a government stooge and is loyal to Obama.
That's what I thought. Okay, I appreciate you clarifying that, because I see people type that. I see people say it, and I immediately, the hair stands up in the back of my neck that they're Obama hacks. So I appreciate you confirming that. But this quickly was the new opiate, synthetic opiate, which is the same thing as fentanyl, 10 times more potent than fentanyl. That's probably misleading because people need to understand there are multiple analogs of fentanyl, maybe 10 times stronger than the base analog, which still doesn't make it carfentanil, remifentanil, and others that are like 50 times. But nonetheless, there's another opiate on the street. People need to be aware of it. At 10 times more powerful than the base analog, makes it pretty dang powerful, makes it a pretty big risk. Clete, I want to get your thoughts on this. And this changes everything about the Strait of Hormuz. 2,500 U.S. Marines just got deployed to the Strait of Hormuz. This isn't deterrence. This is a ground invasion signal. So I don't know if this is actual footage or if it's stock footage. I'm going to mute it just so we can blow it up a bit. But thoughts on this move, Khalid? I'm assuming it's all about protecting the Strait of Hormuz for, oil.
It's protecting the oil channel. It's about protecting the oil channel. It's about protecting the oil refineries that exist in the Middle East that are supplying oil to the rest of the world. The problem you got right now is that I've said this a number of times in the Iran broadcasts that we've done. You cannot defeat Iran with a ground invasion. And if you read the matrix, the Mosaic doctrine that we put out, the paper we put out, Iran is waiting. They are literally waiting for a ground invasion to come in. And they've activated all of the Shias that are loyal to the regime to fight. They're ready to die. They've gotten them chemicals so they can fight just like the terrorists do in other parts of the world. I am worried about a ground invasion for two reasons. Number one, coming in from any other country other than Pakistan, you're coming through the mountains, which makes you a target. It makes it very difficult having to deal with the mountains coming into Afghanistan from Pakistan. We know how difficult it is and how hard it is to maneuver. Number two, your only entry point on ground is coming through Pakistan, which means Pakistan ends up being drawn into the war with Iran. And that's not good for us because we've got a war going on with Afghanistan. We cannot open up a second front against Iran. So we're really worried about a ground invasion. When they talked about engaging the Kurds, that really bugged us because the Kurds just got burned in Syria. After supporting them for almost 2.5 years, they said, okay, we're ditching the Kurds and we're going to deal with Jolani and let him fight ISIS. And we saw what happened. All the prisons were emptied out and all the ISIS fighters came out and they took over the country again. There are a lot of problems with a ground invasion into Iran, and they're waiting for it. And my fear is that if Donald Trump is listening to the wrong people and he starts putting U.S. forces on the ground into Iran, it's going to turn into a very, very bad situation. It's a repeat of Vietnam.
Oof, that doesn't sound good at all. But I think in a lot of cases that being the home team gives you some tremendous advantages over the invader, right? You've spoke at length on this particular topic. This is good to see. There's your buddy right there. You size windbreaker with the cocaine bug eyes. All 9 members of an Antifa cell in Texas have just been found guilty of terrorism charges brought by the DOJ. This is huge, as it's the first terrorism trial against Antifa members in U.S. history. A precedent has been set. That's a fairly powerful precedent there. Which
but Antifa's reaction, I don't know if it's in Nick's post there. Antifa's reaction has been that they have ordered all of their quote unquote fighters to target the judge and the jury and the prosecutor that were involved in convicting them. There has been a kill order issued now.
Wow, can you imagine? If it comes to that, could you imagine?
It's nuts, Chris. I mean, again, declaring these organizations as foreign terrorist organizations, and we know Antifa is a foreign terrorist organization. You're funded from Singapore. How are you not a foreign terrorist organization? The legal ramifications of moving from a domestic fight to calling them foreign terrorist organizations, it changes the battlefield. It opens up a lot more opportunities, a lot more things that the military can do, the government can do, that you can't do when you're talking domestic terror organization or a criminal organization.
Right. I don't know what this video is going to show us, but I guess we'll see. This is breaking a wanted fugitives just killed by SWAT officers. He was Jasmine Crockett. Security, as we mentioned during the broadcast earlier, her security pulled a gun on SWAT officers. This looks like it came from CBS News, so hopefully it doesn't get us hammered by CommieTube.
These images of Mike King standing close to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett shows how trusted he was as part of her security detail while she's been in office and while on the campaign trail during her recent run for a U.S. Senate seat. Multiple law enforcement sources say King was the man shot and killed after a standoff with Dallas police SWAT officers on Wednesday night. Police say he was chased into a hospital parking garage where he barricaded himself inside a vehicle before he was forced out by tear gas and pulled a gun on officers.
Wow. I don't know if there's much to discuss there.
Chris, if you look at these people, I mean, and I hate saying it this way, but if you look at the people that were involved in all these pro-Palestinian events, if you start looking at who their security are, you will find that most of them have a criminal background.
Yeah. And
that makes a lot of sense when you look at the people that they're protecting, and it tells you who they're protecting. We need to start being more serious about what's happening in the U.S. right now.
Well, here you go. Here's the guy who walked in the school in Klein ISD. So in tactical gear, I still can't understand how a guy like this walks in and walks back out again like there's nothing to it.
No.
But let's listen to a little bit of this reporter here.
What we've learned is that on Tuesday, a parent was leaving Zwink Elementary School right here and did not fully latch that door behind them. And so then 39-year-old Kyle Chris was able to sneak in behind them in just
He doesn't look like no Chris Kyle to me.
a 15-second period. So Chris was dressed in full tactical gear. And according to court records, he was armed with both a
Somebody tell me what tactical gear is.
handgun and a taser. Now, Chris allegedly told police he was a security guard, but prosecutors revealed today that he is unemployed and is not a licensed guard or peace officer. Now, I spoke with the district about the 24-hour delay in notifying parents, and they tell me it was a tactical decision. They were working with both the FBI and DPS to keep Chris under constant surveillance. They say tipping off the public could have tipped off the suspect and jeopardized the arrest. The arrest did happen at his home just 4 minutes from the school.
It's alleged this 39-year-old defendant entered an elementary school dressed in tactical gear, armed with a taser, as well as a handgun. He fled quickly when asked for identification. This defendant is not a licensed peace officer or...
Yeah, I'm going to stop it there. Will wonders never cease to amaze, right?
No.
What do you think of this one, Khalid? Iran issues evacuation orders for U.S. companies, including Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Oracle. So they've put out a bunch of threats against all of those companies that are operating in West Asia, Middle East. So IBM Regional Enterprise Services, Google offices, cloud platforms, UAE, Microsoft data centers, corporate hubs across UAE, Israel, Amazon Web Services, data centers, UAE, Bahrain, Cisco, network and security infrastructure, Israel, Gulf states, Palo Alto Network, cybersecurity, UAE, Israel, Oracle, UAE, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Salesforce, CRM, and cloud offices across UAE, Israel, Adobe, UAE and Israel, Qualcomm, technology and R&D partnerships, Israel, UAE, Dell Technologies, Enterprise Data Solutions, UAE, Israel, Intel chip and tech partnerships in Israel, Apple retail corporate cloud partnerships, blah, blah, blah. So basically the Iranians, Khalid, would I be out of line by just saying the IRGC? Because that's who's right.
No, it's not. Look, it's not the Iranians. See, this is the mistake most people make, is they forget that it's not the people of Iran that's the problem. It's the IRGC that's the problem.
Right.
Because even the Ayatollah has no control over the regime in the country. I mean, if the IRGC says we don't want this guy, he's not there anymore. He's either disappeared or he's executed. That's just how it operates. The IRGC right now is looking to cripple every single thing that the US does in the Middle East. It's an economic hit on everything the US does. Now, what doesn't make sense to me is if you really want to hurt the Western world, there are data cables that are running across the bottom of the ocean.
That's right.
Why not cut those?
Yeah. Legit. Absolutely legit.
I mean, it's just, the logic makes no sense to me here, and that's why I stutter and I stumble on this, because if you really want to do the damage, those data cables, that's the best way to do it. You cut everything off.
100%. Next one's a post that I made earlier today, basically pointing out, the stuff that you and I have discussed and warned of multiple times. Law enforcement officers, paramedics stacked together like this happens all the time. Terrorists know it, and they're counting on it to kill first responders en masse when they respond to an attack. Essentially packed in like sardines, right? I mean, that's brutal. Like, absolutely.
It's an easy target. It's an easy mass casualty event, and you wipe out an entire police force, an entire EMS force with one suicide bomber, 2 suicide bombers, a couple of IEDs. You and I have discussed this at length on multiple programs, and the SOPs have to be changed. And as long as you continue to allow your police force to bunch up like that, you are creating a very, very easy target for an active shooter, for a terrorist, for a mentally deranged person. It's an easy target. And I don't understand, and I put a comment in your post as well, I don't understand why law enforcement hasn't figured this out yet. Look at how terrorists have operated around the world, how they've targeted law enforcement, and you're doing exactly what they did wrong.
So I've now lost track of how many agencies I've asked this question, but I've shown them pictures and said, do y'all have an SOP regarding this? And every single one of them has said the exact same thing. Yes, we have an SOP, but it's not enforced. And it's so, Khalid, let's do this. Explain the concept of a primary attack at a soft target, which this response is expected, and then the secondary and tertiary attacks that come after that.
Well, let's look at it this way. Let's take a school, for example. You have an active shooter or a suicide bomber that walks into a school and says, I've taken the school hostage. Phone call goes out. I've taken the school hostage. If anyone tries to breach the doors, I've put explosives on all the doors. I've gathered all the children. And the reason I'm saying the school is because we had a school attacked in Pakistan just like this.
Okay.
The terrorists went in, they took control, and it was an army public school. All serving army officers had their kids in that school. The terrorists went in, they gathered all the kids into the auditorium, and they literally had lists of names. They said, so-and-so's son, please stand up. So-and-so's daughter, please stand up. And they executed them on the spot.
Wow.
Our special forces were not able to breach while that was going on because they were all wearing suicide vests. They said, if you try and breach, we'll just blow ourselves up and we'll kill all of them. We lost 146 children that day. 146 children that day.
Wow.
And a lot of them were kids that were friends. Their fathers were friends of mine. I'd sat with them, literally 2-3 weeks beforehand, and I had 20 burials to go to in a span of a week. So that's why I use the school as the example. If you have a suicide bomber that walks into a school, locks the doors, puts explosives on the doors, he's got a suicide vest on, and he puts a call out saying, if anyone tries to enter, I will blow myself up. You have this kind of a police force jam up outside, you've created another target for them. So you've got the kids as hostages inside, and you've got the entire police force outside, including your tactical operations teams, that you're going to be able to blow up with one guy walking, going doom, and he detonates himself. And there goes your police force.
Yeah, it's incredible. Here's a better picture of that guy in Toronto, by the way, Cleve. Let me blow it up a little bit. I mean, certainly
looks the part.
He looks the part. I mean, obviously I can't identify him, but check this next one out, Cleve. Tell me what you think of this. So Jorge Ventura Media here in Tijuana, Mexico sources Tell me this Islamic mosque behind me, just 2 blocks away from the U.S. border, should be a national security concern now that the U.S. is at war with Iran. This mosque opened up since 2022 and has harbored special interest aliens with terrorism ties who coordinate with the Mexican criminal smugglers to cross illegally with the U.S. I spoke with several East African men who have been at this mosque for a week and confirmed that at least one Iranian national is here now, working on a full story. Stay tuned. Let's hear what he's got to say.
I just arrived here in Tijuana, Mexico for our national security story on Iranian sleeper cells, but also special interest aliens like Chinese nationals and more from other countries in the Middle East. Now, right behind me is this Islamic mosque that has caused national security concerns. I've been speaking with Mexican and American law enforcement sources saying that some of the individuals that stopped at this mosque before getting aided by Mexican cartels to cross illegally into the United States actually were harbored here between 1 to 30 days. What I just did right now is I just did interview some of the migrants that were outside of this mosque. Some of them have actually only been here for a week from East Africa. One of them did confirm that one of the individuals at this mosque is from Iran. So that individual must have arrived quite shortly or just recently. And they did deny an interview. We tried to get an interview with the director. They denied, and we did put in some requests before we actually arrived today and were denied. And speaking to some of my sources, they say that some of the men here in the past, especially under the Biden years, were special interest aliens and had ties to terror groups. They were essentially harbored here, and then eventually they were crossed illegally into the United States, where many of them were directed to destroy their identification or just throw away and disregard passports and things like that. That's what Corey with GOAT Initiative on the American side, he's been able to collect and then link some of those individuals to this mosque here. Once again, this is just a couple of blocks away from the American border. One has to wonder if this is on the radar of law enforcement, especially right now because the United States is at war. And I was able to confirm with one of the individuals, at least one of the individuals staying at this mosque right now is from Iran. So that individual must have arrived recently. So stay tuned for a full report here.
What do you make of that, Khalid?
How many times have we talked about this, Chris? I mean, we've laid this out, how the Mexican border was being used and how the tunnels are being used to infiltrate into the U.S. We've shown the IDs that people have thrown away on the border. Even that guy who came across the border and said, well, do you know who I am? Okay, you don't know who I am. You'll know who I am very soon.
Right.
How have we not made a buffer zone on the border to understand who's operating there, why they're there, what they're doing? 2 kilometers away from the border, that's an easy push. And to go into a tunnel working with the cartels, he can end up in Arizona for all we know.
Yeah, so let's look at this next one here. This guy, you can tell that he's one of the inbreds that probably got an IQ of about 70. So I'd love to say what should happen to him, but we've been keeping.
Well, it's really easy. I mean, it's 3 letters, BFE. I mean,
why am I not surprised? Check this one out. And this was from yesterday, but Dubai attack. Iranian drones struck the iconic Creek Harbor Tower full on, one of the city's most luxurious and emblematic symbols. Fire in the Heights, mass evacuations. Dubai's skyline ablaze in the dead of the night. 6-second video. But this was an Iranian drone attack.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how you defend against this, Khalid. I mean,
you can't defend against it. I mean, this is what Dubai itself. Dubai has for a long time been considered one of the premier tourist destinations to go to. You have an F1 racing track that a normal citizen can go and drive. They have built skiing mountains inside of buildings where you're able to go ski. It is the most. I spent 8 years in Dubai. I worked for Sheikh Mohammed for 8 years in Dubai. Still have a lot of contacts in the UAE. The number of calls I'm getting right now from them asking questions on how we defend against this, I don't know. I don't even know how to tell you what to do. Dubai's retail prices of land, of property, has dropped 30% since the Iran war started. Tourists are pulling out. People are pulling out. Labor that has gone from the Indian subcontinent has all come back to their own countries. India has flown special flights to get their own citizens out. Pakistan has flown special flights to get their own citizens out. You are collapsing a location that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, this was all this was all desert. They have turned it into one of the most beautiful cities, and Iran is destroying it. And they're doing it with the intent that they are trying to deal as much damage to every American ally in the Middle East that they possibly can.
Do they think that's going to endear any of them? You know, like, I don't see it working as a strategy, to be honest with you.
Well, it's one of those thought processes where I know I'm not going to survive, so I'm going to make sure I take everybody with me.
Right. All right, let me see what we got. Oh, I wanted to go up here and show everybody. This is the lawnmower that we should all have, just in case Iran decides to invade America. That's like
that is cool, man.
Yeah, it's 50 cal Gatling gun, 50 BMG Gatling gun. I'd be all over that like a fat kid on a Sonic milkshake.
Yeah.
Order it up. So I think we've beat the news to death for tonight, Khalid. For those of you who don't know, I'll be back on Sunday evening with the C Heaven show, same time as SDN, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's at the letter C, heaven.substack.com. So if you look at my name right there, Chris Heaven, so just the letter C, then the word heaven, HEAV, and like upstairs.substack.com. I go through my X bookmarks, but I typically throw a bunch in of, loony people on the left that we make fun of and have a good laugh about. It's about an hour and 15 minutes long. It's pretty much any piece of zany news that's happened in the previous 24 to 48 hours. And then, of course, we will be back on Monday evening at the usual time, and that'll be Jeff, Randy, Mike Glover, myself, potentially Khalid. And the next episode in our long war series is The Homeland War Begins. The theme is escalating homeland threat environment as the global conflict spills into domestic security. This episode is going to explore how foreign conflicts can and will trigger domestic threats. It examines sleeper networks, extremist propaganda, lone actors, and how modern asymmetric warfare often targets civilian societies rather than military forces. You know what? Other than that, I appreciate our sponsors very, very much. Carnivault, carnivault.com. We don't get affiliate money from them. When you sign up for these guys, they're very generous. They help us defer some pretty significant expenses on our part. The same goes for Wasatch Wagyu. And it's kind of funny, Clede. Like, I like to have my stash of jerky down here. And I wiped it out earlier, and then I went to the cupboard to go get some more. And Cindy's like, "You just took a mittful of them." I'm like, "Yeah, it's mine." Like, I share with everybody, but not this stuff. This is a totally different deal. WasatchWagyu.com. You sign up for a subscription from Wasatch or Carnival, just forward your receipt to support@survivaldispatch.com. And every time you get a receipt to us, we add another 30 days to your membership for free. Check out survivaldispatch.news, where you can sign up as a Guardian, $9.99 a month or $99.99 a year. Get 2 months for free. You get access to our private, ultra secure Element server. Khalid's there all the time fielding questions. Is somewhere north of 15,000 messages a week go through there. So that's why we have 20 different channels, so we can carve it up into different topics. Holy crap, you get access to the SDN system, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. So it's SHTF alerts. You get our full Survival Dispatch Insider Library, 37 ebooks that we used to sell for $9.99 a piece. It's $370. Basically, you get it for free. If you had nothing but the Survival Dispatch Insider PDFs, you would have everything you need knowledge-wise to survive a post-apocalyptic world, or even something that's not quite a post-apocalyptic world. And there's other stuff as well, but my ass has been glued to the seat other than a few trips outside today for, let me do the math here, about 17 and a half hours. So that's it for me for today, Khalid. I know your day's pretty much just starting over there.
Yeah.
Appreciate your insight and time as per usual. Khalid, we'll see you in the element chats. Tell you what, y'all, between now and Monday, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless our law enforcement officers. God bless our military. God bless America. Enjoy the closing video. It's a brand new one.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. On the shore deadly sea, through the mist of the day, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes. What is that which the breeze or the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, half conceals, half discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam in full glory.